southeast Colorado Springs.
Come on, let's go.
Resident Scott Marshall is out for his afternoon walk.
Come on, this way. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you got? Come on now. Come on.
Scott couldn't get the dog to stop paying attention to this, whatever it was.
What's over there?
His heart immediately races because of what he's seeing.
Oh my God.
Police, put your hands in the air and slowly turn around.
Scott turns to find a patrolman's revolver trained on him.
Someone called the police department.
And it was a police officer that had just got to the scene and didn't know what Scott's involvement was.
When the police see Scott there standing next to a dead body, they obviously have to consider him as a possible suspect.
Not far away, Lt.Joe Kenda is hustling to finish his Sunday errands in time for the football game.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Gary. How you doing?
Good. One shirt and one suit. I'll be right back.
Thank you.
I took normal dry cleaning to them. I never had clothing dry cleaned that were stained with human blood.
Here you go.
Because they won't deal with it anyway. That's why you have cheap suits. You just toss them.
Have a good one. Go Broncos.
Yeah, let's hope we get a W today. Crap. No game for me.
I got my laundry. I'll be clean. I just won't be a football fan.
Pulling up to the crime scene, Kenda gets the new game plan for his Sunday afternoon.
So what do we got?
Deceased male, early 20s, no ID on him. Looks like multiple gunshots.
Any witnesses?
Not so far. There was a guy standing over him when patrol arrived, but it turned out to be nothing.
They only find this guy walking his dog. He doesn't know anything about this.
He was just an innocent bystander that happened to come across this unfortunate incident.
Looking at our victim, who at this point is John Doe, is a male in his 20s. I can see 6 bullet wounds, and there are 6 misses. That's a minimum of 12 rounds.
12 shots. Somebody sure didn't like this guy.
There is some evidence of linear shooting where someone is passing up and down the body while pulling the trigger. So someone is bang, 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 making certain he's putting bullets in the vital organs of the victim. That speaks to intent. And it also describes a level of coldness.
So what we got on ballistics?
We found projectiles and casings from 2 different calibers.
The one ammunition was a .380, but we also had ammunition that was consistent with .357 caliber revolver, which basically told us that we had at least 2 guns used at this scene.
But as detectives get a better look at the body, it appears the bullets were just the finishing touch.
This victim also has a laceration on the top of his head that has the appearance of being struck with something that's heavy, similar to a gun. There are marks on his wrist and some lacerations indicating he recently was bound. Now that is very intriguing. Why would his hands have been tied, and why are they no longer tied? So unfortunately, as is the custom in homicide, you have more questions than you have answers to. Our first effort is to try to identify him. So we're going to take photographs of his face.
Okay, buddy. Let's find out who did this to you.
And start knocking on doors that are close to this to see if anybody knows him.
After canvassing dozens of apartments,
You recognize this man?
police finally hit pay dirt.
Oh my God. Yes, I went to high school with this guy.
The victim is identified as 23-year-old George Farabee Jr.
She hasn't seen him for probably 5 years, but she knows his history, and she says he comes from a good family. They're really nice people.
We grew up a close-knit family. George Jr. had a really big heart, would even take punishment for something he didn't do to take it away from my brother or my sister. Very caring and loving individual growing up.
Lieutenant, we got ID. George Farabee.
George Farabee.
She gave me his address and his parents.
Okay, let's go notify him. I don't recognize the face, but I swear I've heard that name before.
Oh, no.
I'm very, very sorry.
It's always a very unpleasant thing, and people react differently. Mrs. Farabee is devastated and is emotionally distraught to the maximum.
I'm a baby. I'm a baby.
The father is distressed as well, but there's a certain level of resolve you see in his face that says to me maybe he's not real surprised that George is found dead. I can feel it. George Sr. knows more about this. It may be helpful to me.
Why don't you take a few minutes, Mrs. Farabee? Maybe Mr. Farabee and I can go somewhere else and talk for a bit.
He picked up on that right away.
Mr. Farabee, I know this is hard, but I want to find justice for your son. Do you have any idea what could have led up to this?
Maybe some kids he was hanging with at school.
He begins to explain that George got interested in narcotics.
What kind of drugs was he using?
Mostly cocaine. But he really got bad when he started using crack.
Being a teenager around the time frame 84, 85, when that came to Colorado Springs, I witnessed it take control of a lot of friends. So it changed him. He wasn't fun-loving anymore. He wasn't joking anymore. It changed him drastically, and it didn't take long.
It got worse and worse, and nothing we tried helped.
He was stealing money from his mother, stealing jewelry of hers from her bedroom, stealing anything he could get his hands on to convert it into money to turn it into drugs.
What are you doing?
I'm just looking at Mom's pearls.
Is this what it comes to?
Everything's cool.
No, it's the principle, son.
Yeah, whatever.
They had reached that point where they said, you know, look, you're gonna have to move out of the house.
They had no idea where he was staying, who he was staying with, and hadn't seen him for a long time.
We knew he was in some trouble, but I didn't think it would end up like this.
What do you mean by trouble?
George Sr. informs Kenda of an incident that took place in his driveway a couple weeks earlier.
Can I help you?
Is George around?
A couple of guys came by here, really rough-looking, street-type guys.
He's not here.
When are you expecting him back?
I'm not sure. Can I tell him who's calling?
That's all right, we'll find him.
Well, I told him George wasn't here. And of course they got mad, but they did leave.
Well, that makes a bell go off in my head. It gives me a direction. I return to my office. We start gathering information about George Farabee, pull records, pull this, pull that, and then it hits me.
A report filed 5 days earlier names George Farabee Jr. as a victim of another crime.
George Farabee is the victim of a kidnapping by force, witnessed by a number of people who see George stuffed into a car at gunpoint. Why is he kidnapped in the first place? What's he done? This is great promise to me, and this is where we're going to proceed. So we're investigating the death of George Farabee, who has been found shot to death in a vacant field, and we discover he's a victim of a recent kidnapping, and now our focus is on the details of that case.
Poring over the case files, Kenda can clearly envision how the kidnapping went down.
George Farabee standing on a street in front of a business, and this car pulls up. Two guys get out.
Come here a second.
He obviously knows them.
What's up?
They talk for a few minutes.
You just come with us.
No, I'm cool, man.
I'm not asking.
One of them produces a gun.
Oh, shit. We need to do something about that.
And they force him into a car and drive off.
The witnesses, one of whom knew George from the neighborhood, reported the abduction to police, and a preliminary investigation was opened.
Kidnapping in Colorado is a very serious felony. It is basically one step down from homicide.
But according to another witness, 2 hours after being kidnapped, George somehow managed to escape.
Another witness, and a relatively short distance away from where this kidnapping took place, sees a person matching George's description running down the street with a gun in his hand. So now he's an escapee from a kidnapping.
Which leads Kenda to another theory about the murder.
What if the kidnappers find him again and they're so angry they just kill him?
That afternoon, Kenda learns that one of the suspects in the kidnapping has been apprehended and is in custody at the El Paso County Jail.
His name is Vincent Freeman, and he was arrested based on a thorough description of the suspect vehicle by the witnesses and the discovery of that vehicle with him driving it.
Vince Freeman happened to have been in jail at the time the murder went down, so he had a very clear alibi.
But it's still possible the second kidnapper was involved in the murder of George. If that's the case, Kenda needs to persuade Vincent Freeman to roll over on his accomplice.
Without George Farabee, who is conveniently dead, pursuing charges against these two individuals would be extremely difficult. So unfortunately, Vince is going to be released from jail in a matter of hours, but he doesn't know that, and I'm going to use that to my advantage.
So you want to tell me what this whole kidnapping thing was about?
It was nothing. I just went over there to talk to George.
Oh, yeah? So what were you talking to him about?
You know, something stupid he did a few days ago.
He says that George and two of his buddies came over to his apartment.
Shoot, don't fall in.
And they were talking and drinking and generally having a good time.
This boy need to slow down, man.
So turning into a junkie.
You the junkie. Hey, man. I gotta make some moves.
And then they all left. And then he noticed that his wallet that had been left on the dresser had been moved. And lo and behold, they have stolen $280 from him.
I don't know which one of them took it. One of them did.
Vincent denies abducting George and claims he only tracked him down to ask for his money back.
Vincent is trying to minimize his part in all of this. I didn't do anything. Those witnesses are wrong. I was just talking to George, man. I was being real reasonable.
Kenda knows that Vincent isn't being completely honest about the kidnapping or about why George was at his house in the first place.
George doesn't go to Vince's house to say hello. He goes to Vince's house to buy dope.
Will this have anything to do with drugs, Vincent? Is that why you were questioning George?
I don't know nothing about that.
Kenda decides to use Vincent's lie to get what he really came for, the name of Vincent's partner in crime.
Now, he doesn't know that we're going to release him. He thinks he might be going down for first-degree kidnapping. So I said, tell me who this other guy was that helped you question him, and if he confirms what you say, we can probably clear this matter up and say Monday you'll be out of jail. What do you think?
Monday, you can do that.
I can try.
His name's Dan Winters. He was with me.
Thank you, Vincent.
I'm a game.
Thank you very much. Dan Winters could mean a lot. So I sent people out to find him. They bring him to a fire station.
Taking him to a fire station as opposed to the detective bureau, that's a little bit less intimidating, and the hopes are that he is more open to talking in terms of what he knows about this whole deal.
Dan, this is Lieutenant Kenda.
It's Joe. Thanks for coming in. Let's all get right to it. We already spoke to your buddy Vince, and he told us about the money getting stolen, and how you guys weren't really trying to kidnap George.
And I said, I believe him, and we're probably going to let Vince out of jail, and he'd sure like to be out of jail, and you're kind of the key to that.
Detectives are hoping Dan Winters will take the bait.
What George did was wrong. Stealing's a crime.
We know that Vincent was rightfully trying to get back something from George. We all know that it wasn't cash. Tell us what happened.
Just tell us the story we can believe, and the lieutenant can let your buddy go.
Yeah, well, it was a drug rip. George busted in with two of his friends, had Vincent at gunpoint, and they robbed him, and they took his whole stash.
Dan Winters' explanation is the most logical reason yet as to how George ended up shot to death in a field.
Armed robbery of drug dealers is exceptionally dangerous, and George discovered the reason why. They tend to fill you full of bullets for that, and they certainly did that to him. So now we've discovered that George is not only a victim of a kidnapping, but we've discovered something a lot more revealing, that he's involved in the armed robbery of drug dealers.
Dan Winters claims George Farabee Jr. was part of a stick-up team that stole Vincent Freeman's cache of cocaine.
What I want to know from Winters is, like, George the mastermind of this affair? Does everybody follow him?
And George was the leader?
George? Nah, he was just the door opener.
The door opener? That sounds lovely. It's not. If you are going to rob somebody and you've got ski masks on, nobody's going to open the door for you.
George was a charismatic kind of person. He would be the one that would knock on the door and engage in some conversation.
Yo, what's up, Vince? What's up? You got two of them things for me, man?
All right, hang on a second.
Hey, yo. Don't leave me out here? How far we go back? Hook me up. Come on, babe.
What is that, man? What is up? Look it up. Where the drugs? I don't know. Where the drugs at? Get your ass back there. Get your ass back to her. What is that, man?
Where?
Get up. I don't know. Get your ass on the ground.
Get out!
I'm gonna ask one more time, where the drugs at? Drugs are top left. Grab that shit, man. I swear to God, everything better be in there.
I got it.
That's all of it?
Yeah, I got it.
George had some compassion. It didn't look like he really wanted to see anybody hurt.
So he relents.
Hey, what are you doing?
Lifts back the shotgun.
Yo, man, what are you doing? Hell no, they witnesses, man. I ain't going out like that. I can't see your face, man. We got the drugs. Let's go. Come on.
And they leave. Vince came that close.
Dan, he meant his fence. Listen, you know where George is?
Vince wasn't concerned about the loss of a little bit of dope.
All right, get back to me.
He's concerned about almost getting murdered by some crazy son of a bitch in a mask.
Come with us, dude. Get your ass in that.
That's why they kidnapped George, to find out who those dudes were. Dan says they tie him up with some wire, that's the marks on his wrist. And Vince hits him a couple times, demanding to know the identity of the guys in masks.
Who were they?
George, look at me. Look at me. I know you were just doing this for the drugs. So you tell me some names, and you can leave here with a little something.
You gotta remember who George is. George isn't loyal to anything except narcotics.
Okay, all right.
So, bang, he tells him.
Fred Williams, Taze Brooks. Oh, give me my fix, man, okay?
You're gonna stay put for a minute? Don't let me find out you've been lying to me. Keep an eye on him. I'll be back.
So Vince goes off to act on this information, and Dan is left to guard George.
What happens next?
That didn't go so well.
What do you mean?
I fell asleep.
You fell asleep?
Yeah, man, I was tired. I fell asleep on the couch.
Dan claims the next thing he remembers is waking up with a gun in his face.
George, take it easy.
Yeah, he got untied and he took my gun. Boy, don't you hate that, Dan, when that happens, when they take your gun and put it in your face. All he has to do is pull the trigger, and Dan Winters can go to sleep forever. But he didn't want to do that. He just wanted to get away.
I figured it wasn't a good idea to chase him, since he had the gun and all.
What caliber?
Browning 9mm.
This gun was a Browning 9mm. It actually was loaded with .380 ammunition because they're interchangeable. It's a match to the ammunition that was found at the scene.
Man, we didn't have nothing to do with George's death. I didn't have nothing to do, Vincent didn't have nothing to do with it. We were after those other guys, not George.
Kenda is certain Dan's 9mm pistol was used in George's murder, but he has no reason to think Dan was involved in the shooting.
I have no probable cause to believe that Dan Winters is responsible for anything other than a kidnapping by force. And nobody's going to prosecute, so we release him.
Kenda's attention now turns to the two men that had partnered with George in robbing Vincent Freeman and other area drug dealers.
Finding Taze Brooks and Fred Williams is really important because you're going to want to find them as quickly as you can and see what they've got to say.
But before Kenda can locate them, a tip rolls in from an unlikely source.
It's Kenda. He's in Weld County?
We have an inmate in Weld County Jail. He says he knows who killed George Farabee. Now, generally, inmates want something in return. A lot of times their information is of no value, but we have to see and hear what he has to say.
Okay, I'll be right there. Thank you. Bye.
He might have something magical to say.
Mr. Smith, I was told you have some information for me.
Yeah. Here's the deal. I know what happened to George. I heard them talking about it.
And you want me to go to the parole board on your behalf?
But no. I don't want anything. He was my friend.
I thought, wow. Here's a man who wants nothing in return and is convincing when he says that George was shot down like a dog and that wasn't right.
Look, the people that you want to get are the two guys that were with him pulling stick-ups. Fred Williams and Taze Brooks.
Why those guys? Aren't they all part of the same crew?
Oh, they thought George was a rat.
He said that once George had escaped, he went back to his crew, so to speak, and he told them what had just happened.
What the hell wrong with you?
Y'all should have seen Vince, his boy Dan, trying to kidnap me. So, I escaped, took old buddy's gun, held him up at it. Should have seen his face, yo. Shook up.
How you get out of there with that, man?
Huh? Shoot. All he did, he just asked me for y'all two names.
What the hell did he ask for our names? What you mean? It ain't your name, it's my name.
T, hold up, man.
What we gonna do when they find out we the ones running around hitting people?
They did a lot of them. They didn't just do Vince. And they were very worried now that all these drug dealers were going to come looking for him and kill him.
Look, all I know is that Fred and Taze killed my friend. You understand? It was them two guys.
When he said that to me, all of these other potential suspects melted away. I believed him. investigating the death of George Farabee, a man struggling with his addiction to drugs.
From the time when I grew up with him, very kind and a generous person. Unfortunately, he was running with some bad people. Certain paths you take can be fatal. That's what happened with George.
So now we have an informant who is a true friend of George Farabee, who identifies to us the names of the people responsible for his death.
The informant, a low-level criminal named Matt Smith, claims he was confronted by Fred Williams, Taze Brooks, and a third man.
Matty boy.
He says that Fred and Taze and another guy named Wesley Fortune, who was also an in-and-out member of the stick-up crew, were suddenly really looking for George, and they were angry. They were on the hunt.
So where your buddy George at?
Where he at? I don't know, man. What y'all want with him anyways?
George talks too much. We need to take care of that boy.
And he drew his finger across his own throat like a knife. That message was clear. They need to kill him.
Matt Smith believes the three men were worried that Vincent Freeman would let other drug dealers know that they were the ones behind the recent spate of drug reps.
Loosen up, man.
Chill, buddy.
When you reveal identities to one, you reveal identities to all. They were fearful of all the drug dealers they had robbed getting together and seeking revenge.
Tell him we came by.
Well, I asked him, you're around these guys all the time. Does Fred Williams always carry? Does he have a gun? Oh, yeah, man. He's got a shoulder rig. He always carries a .357. Oh, now that's the right kind of gun. 357 bullets are recovered from our crime scene. And what other guns they have?
But you know the gun that George took from the kidnappers? The Browning 9mm? Yeah. Well, somehow Fred got a hold of it from somebody else.
It is a typical tale with this gun. Guns pass through many hands very quickly on the street.
What's happening, man?
He says George gave the gun to a guy to cover a drug debt. That guy in turn gave it to somebody else. He in turn sold it to somebody else for $50. Back and forth and so on through all these different people, and winds up in the worst possible pair of hands. Fred's. So George may have inadvertently provided the means of his own death.
Well, I appreciate you coming forward. Thank you.
Acting on the information provided by Matt Smith, Kenda moves to bring Fred Williams, Taze Brooks, and Wesley Fortune in for questioning.
We still need more evidence than we have, but we need a player in that group to talk. Now, you can pick your winner out of that group, but Fred is considered the worst of the three.
Fred Williams' criminal history was extensive. He appeared to have engaged in prior violent acts. He was wanted in multiple states. It seemed like he was the natural leader of the team.
Fred is not a guy who's going to tell you nothing. So we're thinking about Wesley and Taze as maybe the people to go look for. And we get good news.
Hey, Lieutenant, guess what? Taze Brooks, he just gave himself up.
Really?
Yep, we can go see him right now.
Let's go.
He turns himself in. Now, why does he do that? He wants protection. Fine. He made the choice for us. So we bring in Taze Brooks and we talk to him.
Okay, Taze, let's get right into it. Tell us about you and George.
George and I was just friends. Just did a little work together in the past.
He confirms everything we'd heard.
So when did you decide to murder George?
I had nothing to do with it. That was all Wes and Fred.
Taze explains that they're having a card game in Wesley Fortune's apartment. Taze Brooks is there, Wesley Fortune is there, Fred Williams is there.
Got that?
What's up with that cat George, man?
This dude George more trouble than he is worth, man.
Man, look, man, that's all you can talk about. Look.
Nah, for real. This dude can't keep his mouth shut.
We gotta get got.
Let's do it.
No. We can kill this permanently, bruh.
At first, I thought they were bluffing. Later, we went to see Matt Smith. We hassled them about what George was, and that's how I knew they were serious about knocking him out.
Taze said that didn't interest him, and he went home. They stayed together and continued on the hunt.
And last I saw them, they both had a gun. I knew they were serious about shooting. I ain't with it.
What you mean you ain't with it?
I mean, I'm going to the crib.
Hold up, man. You need a few stripes anyway, man. Come on.
I'm out.
Man, take your ass to the crib, man. Let's go handle this.
The fact that only 2 types of ammunition were found at the scene lends credence to Taze's story.
You clipped up, locked and loaded.
Where can we locate them?
Good luck. They're probably gone now.
At the beginning of this case, we were chasing ghosts. They're not ghosts anymore. They're Fred Williams and Wesley Fortune.
To bring in Wesley and Fred, Kenda recruits some powerhouse help.
We are aware that Fred Williams is a fugitive in 2 states. The U.S. Marshals are probably the best agency in the country for finding wanted persons.
This is Lieutenant Kenda from the Colorado Springs Police Department.
And because of the interstate activities of this individual, they're willing to pursue.
But the next day, Kenda's fugitive problem is cut in half when Wesley Fortune turns himself in to law enforcement.
He thinks maybe we're not as dangerous as drug dealers, so he surrenders and then lawyers up at the end of his incredible lies, and he's not going to tell us nothing. But we now have Fortune in custody.
At the same time, Wesley Fortune is booked into county lockup. A pair of U.S. Marshals in Washington, D.C. are knocking on the door of Fred Williams' childhood home.
Afternoon, sir. Fred Williams here, please.
No, it's not. Do you mind if we step inside and ask you some questions?
Sure.
Interesting remark is made during the course of that conversation with the family.
When's the last time you saw Fred?
2 days. I don't care if I don't see him again.
Wow. Pretty powerful coming from blood. And he's dangerous. And even his own family knows it.
With the killer still on the loose, the frantic search for Fred finally pays off.
Hey, there he is. Here's our guy.
When he is spotted just moments after Marshall spoke with his family.
Freeze! Don't move! Freeze! Hands up! Turn around.
The United States Marshals have arrested Fred Williams on 7th Street in D.C. He waives extradition and says, I ain't telling you nothing. If I talk at all, I'll do my talking in court through my lawyer.
With neither Fred Williams nor Wesley Fortune talking, and no eyewitnesses tying them to George Farabee Jr.'s murder, Kenda knows the case isn't completely closed.
I assured the family that we would find the people responsible for this crime and bring them to justice. It's always a major fight. But you have 2 choices, engage in the fight or surrender, and I'm unwilling to surrender. There's no question in my mind that these are the people responsible for killing George Farabee, Fred Williams, and Wesley Fortune. But you always worry, absent a confession, it is important to hold people accountable for taking human life.
It's the safety of the community that has to be paramount. The justice system isn't just for a certain kind of person. Justice is for everybody.
Miss Kenda.
Then, just days before his 2 suspects are set to be arraigned, Kenda receives new intel from someone serving time in county lockup alongside Wesley Fortune.
It could be important, but then again, you're left with the fact that he is, in fact, a jailhouse informant. You generally don't get any doctors and lawyers who have knowledge of criminal activity. You get other criminals.
Joe Kenda.
So it may be helpful, it may not. Who knows?
So I was told you had something for me about Wesley Fortune?
Inmate Donald McCarthy tells Kenda that Wesley Fortune had recently approached him for advice.
This informant has a reputation as the jailhouse lawyer. He's always reading law books and is considered to be some sort of legal expert, which he is not, but that's why Fortune went to him.
So I'm hanging out in my cell one day, and Wesley starts talking about how he hopes the police can't prove that it's first-degree murder.
Yo, Don. Don. Hey, Don.
Yeah. What's up?
Hey, I've been thinking about pleading guilty to conspiracy. I don't think they can prove much beyond that.
Why would you do that if you don't think they can get you for murder?
Listen, you're not getting it, right? Me and Fred, we did him. We knocked him off.
Tells him. We talked about it for days. We carried out the plan. It's first-degree murder, just like the law says, man. I gotta plead to something. I ain't pleading to that.
It might be your best bet. Otherwise, you might catch yourself wearing these oranges for a long time.
When you get information from somebody who's in custody, one of the things you look at is, could they have read it in the paper? It did not appear that he had another source for the information that could have given him the level of detail that he had.
Though Donald McCarthy's statement is secondhand information, Kenda can still piece together how the crime went down.
I surmise Fred and Wesley hit the street. George isn't hard to find. George is out trying to score drugs. He's around.
George, get in. I'm just gonna kick it at the house tonight.
George, man, come in. I got you on this one, man. Man, we found the best in the city, man. I swear to God, best in all of Colorado. Come on. Come on.
They found him without difficulty. They probably talked him into the car, which would have been easy. We're gonna go buy you some drugs just because we owe you. He'd hop right in.
So we're gonna get some of that good stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's what we're doing, George.
All right, it's good to be back with y'all boys, man.
Kenda believes that once George was inside the car, Fred and Wesley made their real intentions clear.
George, man, them drugs that really got to your head, man.
What you talking about, man?
You smiling, you think this a game, man? You out here singing to the streets, man. You playing with people's lives. You ratting us out. You telling names now.
No, you already know that.
George! George, what's the code, man? What's the code? Huh?
I know the code.
What's the code, then?
I know the code. I know I messed up.
Nah, you did more than mess up, George. This was your last straw. I told you to leave them drugs alone, man. I told you.
But you know that white boy, he ain't saying nothing.
What the happens to snitches?
They were part of a team, and it took George like 0 seconds to rat him out.
You a dead man, bruh. Wes, man, let me smoke this dude right here, man.
They drive out there to that vacant field and get out.
Huh? Hell nah. Hell nah.
What y'all need,
You a rat, man.
Yo, you need money? I'll get you some money.
Money, man.
Need West Fred, please.
Man, you gotta up, man. You be running around all over your streets talking about fellas.
Please, man, come on.
Sorry, man.
Sorry, come on. Think about it. Come on, don't do this, man. How long we done known each other?
And the gunfire begins. George is down and dead before he knows what hit him. His eyes were still open when I saw him in that field. He didn't have time to close them.
Ain't no more ratting, George.
And then they went on with their lives. It means nothing to people like that, nothing at all.
In the end, Wesley Fortune was the first one to go to trial. He was convicted by a jury of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. He was later sentenced by the judge to 28 years in prison.
Fred Williams worked out a deal and pled guilty to conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in exchange for a 14-year sentence.
The weapons that were used were never found. We didn't have any eyewitnesses that put anybody at the scene. And so really all you had was information that would sustain charging them with conspiracy to commit the murder, the planning steps that they took.
So at the end of the day, no one actually was charged with killing George Faraday. Very odd.
Though they were glad to see the alleged killer serve time for their crime, George's friends and family feel his memory has been marred by the tawdry details of the case.
I just would like people to know what he truly stood for. He was truly raised with morals and values. He was not a bum. He wasn't a robber. He wasn't a killer. He wasn't those things. He was a good guy.
His life was just snuffed from him in an instant. So it's had a big impact on me, but I have fond memories of him. The last conversation I had with my brother, he said, I just want you to know I want you to know I love you. And I said, I love you too, George Jr.
George was not a bad person. Addiction took his mind and took his soul and drove all of his behavior. He couldn't stop. So what's the answer? Don't start. Don't start. And you'll never be faced with the question of how do I stop?
Chicago, winter of 1985. A city of sirens and steam, neon signs bleeding into frozen sidewalks, the kind of cold that turns breath into ghosts. On the west side, the night starts like any other. Bars humming, trains rattling overhead, radios whispering the same headlines about crime, politics, and a city learning to live with fear. Then, somewhere between midnight and 1:00 a.m., something happens on a dark corner that will echo for decades. One girl disappears, and Chicago gains a question it has never been able to answer. Her name is Emily Navarro, 17 years old, high school senior, dark hair always tied back in a hurried ponytail, brown eyes that teachers say are too sharp, too grown for her age, daughter of a mechanic and a night shift nurse, first in her family heading toward college. She doesn't drink, doesn't skip class, doesn't hang with gangs, doesn't fit the profile that detectives are used to seeing in missing person reports. That's why, even now, 40 years later, some old detectives still remember her file number by heart. It's Friday, February 8th, 1985. Emily finishes her shift at a small corner grocery on West 18th and Damon. The owner will later swear she left around 11:15 p.m., wearing a faded denim jacket, jeans, white sneakers, and a red scarf her mother knitted the winter before. The streets are slick, the snow pushed to gray, filthy banks along the curbs. A bus stop stands half a block away. Her route is simple, 2 buses, 10 minutes of walking. She never makes it home. Every cold case starts with that gap, that thin slice of time that nobody can account for. For Emily, it's roughly 45 minutes. 45 minutes where a busy city suddenly becomes blind. No confirmed sightings, no clear witnesses, no argument heard over the hum of traffic, just a trail that cuts off in the middle of an ordinary night. At 1:37 a.m., Emily's mother calls in the first report. The dispatcher on the other end hears the tremor in her voice, logs it, and clicks to the next call. In 1985 in Chicago, a late teenager not coming home on time is a nightly routine. Maybe she went to a friend's place. Maybe she had a fight with her parents. Maybe she's blowing off steam. That's what the forms are built for. That's what the boxes on the report want you to check. Runaway, domestic, follow up later. But Emily's mother doesn't accept that word. Runaway. She repeats it back to the officer who takes the statement at their small brick house on a narrow street, and it sounds wrong in her mouth, like a foreign language. Emily doesn't run. Emily plans. Emily calculates. Emily has a scholarship application on the kitchen table and a stack of library books by her bed. There is nothing in her life that suggests she wanted to disappear. The first officer notes the concern, writes mother insists on characteristic behavior, and moves on. No fresh crime scene, no blood, no signs of forced entry, just a missing person report in a city drowning in them. By Saturday morning, the Navarro family begins their own investigation. Flyers, phone calls, knocks on doors. They talk to neighbors, friends, co-workers at the grocery store. They walk the route she should have taken, over and over again. The bus stop, the alley shortcut she sometimes used in bad weather, the payphone on the corner that now hangs silent, metal cold and sticky with leftover fingerprints that nobody bothers to dust. The city keeps moving. Delivery trucks roar. Kids play on stoops. A plow groans past, pushing last night's snow into heavier, uglier piles. On Sunday, February 10th, the call finally lands where it shouldn't have taken so long to go, the Detective Bureau. A sergeant reviews the file, glances at the notes, sees the words, "no history of running away," and feels that small, familiar chill. In a city this big, pattern recognition is a survival skill. Girls who don't run, who vanish between school and home, between work and home, between bus stop and front door, those files almost never end well. Detective Raymond Ray Calder is assigned the case. He's been with CPD for 12 years, 5 of them in violent crimes. He's seen everything from domestic homicides to mob hits in parking garages, but something about missing kids sticks to him. He doesn't talk about why. Other detectives know he lost a younger sister in the 70s. Car accident, they say. Nothing criminal, but they also know he works these cases like he's trying to rewrite history. Calder drives out to the Navarro house, report misspells Navarro, and that typo will haunt the paperwork for decades on Sunday afternoon. He steps into a living room that smells like strong coffee and cold fear. The television is on but muted, the news crawling silently across the bottom of the screen. Emily's school photo is already propped up on the mantel, framed like a shrine. Her mother sits on the edge of the couch, shoulders tense, hands twisting a dish towel that doesn't belong in a living room. Her father stands in the corner, arms folded, eyes locked on a point somewhere beyond the detective's shoulder, as if he's bracing for impact. Calder takes notes. What time did she leave work? Has she ever stayed out late before? Has she been upset lately? Any boyfriends? Any trouble? He moves through the questions with professional precision, but internally, he's already pushing past the script. There's no sign of runaway, no hidden fights or secret debts. Her teachers call her reliable, responsible, the kind of girl you'd be proud to have as your daughter. That last phrase hits the room like a silent explosion. Later, one neighbor will say it was the look in Calder's eyes that convinced them this was serious, not his badge, not the notepad, the look, like he'd seen this story before and knew how it usually ended. By Monday, February 11th, a photo of Emily appears in the local paper, small, bottom half of the page, under stories about budget cuts and a warehouse fire. The headline is simple: teen missing after late shift. No one knows that this tiny column will become the first public record of what will eventually be called, in documentaries and podcasts and late-night reruns of crime shows, the Navarro case. The first real break, or what looks like one, comes from the bus driver on the route Emily should have taken. He doesn't remember her specifically at first. Too many faces, too many nights. But when Calder shows him the photo again, when he presses him on the exact time, on the weather, on the way people were dressed, a small flicker of recognition appears. He thinks he saw her, not in a seat, standing near the middle doors, holding onto the metal pole, scarf looped once around her neck, jacket damp at the shoulders. She gets on near the store just like she should. She gets off 3 stops early, at an intersection with a liquor store, a laundromat, and a half-lit alley that smells like stale beer and gasoline. She doesn't usually get off there. At least that's what her mother insists. But on that night, if the driver is right, she does. Why? Why would a 17-year-old girl step off a warm bus alone on a freezing night 3 stops away from home? That becomes the first big question. Calder canvasses the area around that intersection. He speaks to the liquor store clerk, who barely looks up from his racing form, to the laundromat owner who remembers a broken change machine but not a girl in a red scarf, to the woman who lives above the storefronts who says she heard something that night, not a scream, not exactly, more like a sharp gasp cut off fast, but it could have been the television, it could have been someone slipping on the ice, it could have been nothing. In cold cases, could have been nothing is a constant chorus. Then comes the alley. It's narrow, flanked by dumpsters and back doors, lit only by a single flickering bulb that no one bothers to fix. Calder walks it slowly, boots crunching on a dirty mix of snow and gravel. He takes in every shadow, every discarded bottle, every bit of graffiti. He finds one thing that stops him, a smear of red on the brick, low to the ground, half hidden behind a metal trash can. He crouches, scrapes it gently with a gloved finger, and watches the faint, rusty flake come away. It's not new, it's not fresh. It could be anything, rust, old paint, dried ketchup, but it could also be blood. Forensics in 1985 is not what it will become. No rapid DNA tests, no national databases humming with profiles. A sample like that goes into a bag, into a lab, into a backlog. The report, when it finally comes back, is inconclusive. Possible blood, human, likely, no match. Not enough to build a case, not enough to even call it a real lead. Just another maybe in a city filled with maybes. Days turn into weeks. A few tips trickle in. Someone thinks they saw a girl matching Emily's description at a bus station in St. Louis. Someone else claims she's working at a diner in Indiana under a different name. Another caller, voice slurred, says he knows who took that little Mexican girl, but the details fall apart under questioning. None of it holds. None of it fits the sharp, precise girl whose teachers and friends describe in the same words: focused, serious, going somewhere. At school, her empty desk becomes a silent monument. Some days, students leave notes on it. Other days, they avoid it entirely. In the hallway, rumors sprout like weeds. She ran off with a boyfriend. She was pregnant. She witnessed something and got silenced. In the absence of facts, stories multiply. They always do. For the Navarro family, the timeline splits. There's the life they were supposed to have: graduation, prom photos, college visits. And there's the life they now live: press conferences in cramped rooms, pleading into microphones that barely work, staring at a wall of cameras and hoping the right pair of eyes is watching. Their appeal is the same every time. If you've seen her, if you know anything, please come forward. But tips without substance are like smoke. They drift, they swirl, they vanish. Inside the detective bureau, the case file fattens. Reports, interviews, maps with routes highlighted in yellow and circled in red. Timelines scrawled on whiteboards. A city map with pins sticking out like tiny sharp accusations. Calder works late. He drives the route again and again, sits on the same bus line, stands at the same stop, stares down that same alley until its every crack feels familiar. He calls in favors, asks other detectives to keep an ear out, nothing. There is one detail, though, that doesn't make it into the early reports. One that surfaces later in hushed conversations and half-forgotten notes. A neighbor, an older man who walks his dog late at night, tells Calder he saw a car parked near the intersection around the time Emily got off the bus. Dark sedan, older model, Illinois plates. He heard a door slam. He saw a figure, maybe two, shapes moving against the snow, but he can't give a plate number, can't give a face. The car drives away slowly, taillights fading into the frozen haze. A dark sedan in Chicago, it's like saying you saw a brick building or heard a siren, useless by itself. But later, years later, those words, dark sedan, will come back like a phantom, circling the case with new weight. By the end of March, internal pressure mounts. New cases keep coming. The city doesn't pause for a missing girl, no matter how much her family, her neighborhood, or one stubborn detective begs it to. Emily's file is still open, but it moves to the second row of active cases, then the third. Calder still visits the Navarro house, still takes their calls, still tells them he's working it, and he is. But he's also working 3 other cases, and then 4, and then 5. Night after night, Chicago keeps making headlines. Murders, robberies, fires. The Navarro case, once a whisper of hope on the police scanners and a brief headline in the morning paper, begins to slide out of view. What no one knows yet, not the Navarro family, not the detectives, not even Chicago itself, is that this case will never fully disappear. It will go cold, yes, it will sink under layers of dust and new tragedies. But it will not die, because somewhere out there, someone knows what happened between that bus stop and that front door. Someone knows why a 17-year-old girl chose, or was forced, to get off 3 stops early. Someone knows what was waiting for her in that narrow alley of flickering light and shifting shadows. And that someone, for reasons the city is still trying to understand, will not speak. Winter slowly bleeds into spring, but the city doesn't thaw. The Navarro house remains frozen in time, curtains half drawn, phone always within reach. Every ring, every knock at the door pulls them to their feet. Most nights it's nothing, wrong numbers, false hope, kids daring each other to call the haunted house on 18th Street, but sometimes it's a whisper, a girl's voice saying, "She's not gone." Click, silence. Traced calls go nowhere, payphones, abandoned lines, static ghosts. Detective Calder keeps going through the motions, but he feels the edges of obsession cutting in. He drives past that alley even when he's off duty, windows down, listening to the hum of the city. He still sees the red smear when he closes his eyes, still hears the echo of that neighbor's story about the car. He keeps a copy of Emily's photo in his coat pocket, not for the file, not for the department, for himself. The other detectives call it the ghost photo. They say he's letting it eat him alive. They're not wrong. In April, a break, or what looks like one. A boy walking his dog near the south branch of the Chicago River spots something tangled in the reeds. A jacket, denim, torn at the sleeve. Police tape flaps in the wind before the scene even cools. The river stinks of oil and spring rot. The tag on the jacket reads Navarro, E. Her mother's sewing, the small white thread still neat against the frayed edge, but that's all they find. No body, no shoes, no red scarf, just a piece of her, stripped of warmth, pulled from the dark water like a message nobody can read. The press circles again. Clothing found in teen's disappearance. The story runs 3 minutes on the evening news. Footage of the river, Calder standing in profile, reporters shouting questions that all sound the same. Do you think she's still alive? He doesn't answer. He can't. Because he doesn't know. Because part of him hopes she is, and the other part knows better. In the weeks that follow, he digs deeper, checks every missing person's file from the past 5 years for patterns. Young women, late shifts, buses, alleys. He builds a board in his office, pins photos, maps routes. The lines start crossing. 1982. Another girl, gone after a grocery shift near Ashland Avenue. 1983. One more. Last seen leaving a laundromat. None of them found. Each within 3 miles of where Emily vanished. The same type of neighborhood, the same type of night. He goes to his captain with the theory. One predator, same hunting ground, Same method. Approach, isolate, disappear. The captain stares at the board, the red string web like a spider's map of failure, and shakes his head. You're stretching, Ray. Coincidences happen. We don't have the manpower for ghosts. The file gets pushed back again. Priorities shift. The mayor's office is screaming about rising gang crime. Federal agents are in town for drug raids. One missing girl can't compete with headlines. But Calder doesn't stop. He interviews old witnesses again. This time he brings photos of cars, sedans, coupes, dark models from the early 80s. One man, a gas station attendant, pauses when he sees a Buick LeSabre. Says a car like that used to park near the intersection some nights. Always idling, always facing the alley. License plate? No. Face of the driver? No. Just the smell of cigarette smoke and the glint of something metallic hanging from the rearview mirror. A small cross catching light. In May, a woman calls the tip line, says she saw a girl who looked like Emily at a Greyhound terminal in Milwaukee. Same jacket, same eyes. Calder drives up that night, coffee gone cold by the time he arrives. Security cameras from the station show dozens of girls, hundreds of faces, none match perfectly. But one frame, blurry, half-turned, freezes him. The height, the hair, the red scarf. He can't prove it's her, but he can't unsee it either. He drives back to Chicago in silence, highway stretching like a scar under the moonlight. Every passing truck feels like a heartbeat he can't catch up to. When he gets home, he sits in his car outside his apartment until dawn, watching the city wake up, convinced she's out there somewhere, breathing the same air, just beyond reach. Then, summer. Heat replaces cold, but the city doesn't feel any warmer. The Navarro case becomes one more unsolved in the department's growing list. Files pile high. Evidence boxes gather dust. Calder gets reassigned. New cases. Fresh crimes. But he never lets it go. He keeps the key to the evidence locker in his pocket. Checks the box now and then, as if the contents might have changed. They never do. By late July, something shifts. A call from another precinct. A body found near an abandoned rail yard, partially buried, wrapped in old canvas. Female, young, dark hair. The site swarms with uniforms, reporters, flies. Calder stands at the edge of the tape, heart hammering. The medical examiner's team works in silence. When they uncover the wrist, they see a bracelet, silver chain, one charm missing. Emily's best friend later confirms she wore one just like it. The papers scream again. Body may belong to missing teen. For 3 days, the city buzzes with speculation. Then the results come back. Not Emily. Another girl. Jane Doe. No ID, no match, no closure. The city sighs and moves on, but Calder doesn't. He looks at the remains and wonders if this Jane Doe and Emily crossed paths once. Same bus, same street, same fate waiting in the dark. By autumn, the leads are gone. Witnesses move, forget, die. The Navarro family stops answering reporters' calls. Their faces age in a single year. The father's hair turns white. The mother's hands shake when she holds the coffee pot. The house becomes quieter, smaller, like grief has eaten its walls. They keep her room exactly as it was. Posters still on the walls, textbooks on the desk, red scarf replaced by another her mother knitted but can't bear to wear. Calder files his final report that December. Case suspended pending new evidence. The words sting like failure carved in stone. He signs it, shuts the folder, and locks it away. But the photo stays in his wallet, always. And then silence. For 10 years, no new evidence, no confession, no closure. The case drifts into Chicago folklore. The girl who stepped off the bus and vanished. The alley ghost. Some say she was taken by a serial killer, others that she ran from something at home. Teenagers dare each other to walk that alley after dark. True crime magazines call it the most haunting disappearance of the decade, but for those who lived it, it's not a story, it's a wound. Until one day in 1995, the phone rings again. A construction crew digging near the old river embankment uncovers a shallow grave. Inside, a small collection of bones, a torn denim fragment, and, wrapped tightly around the remains of the neck, a red scarf, faded but unmistakable. The city holds its breath. The case isn't solved, it's only beginning again. The shovel hits something that doesn't sound like rock. The workers freeze. They peel back the dirt with gloved hands, the river wind cutting through their jackets, and there it is, a curve of bone, pale against the dark, wet soil. The foreman makes the call with shaking fingers. Squad cars roll in, yellow tape unspools, flapping above the reeds. A new scene, an old ghost. The first detective on site doesn't know the name yet. To him, it's just remains by the river. He walks the perimeter, checks the angles, counts footsteps from the embankment to the nearest road. Routine. Then the evidence tech lifts a tangle of fabric from the grave. Careful, slow, like it might explode. Faded red, worn thin, still knotted as if someone pulled it tight against the cold. or around a throat. By the time the lab logs it, that scarf has a label, possible connection to Navarro case. Someone drags the old box out of storage. The file hits the table with a heavy, familiar thud. Dust flies up like a curse. On the front, in faded ink, Navarro Emily, 17, missing 2/8/85. It looks like a time capsule. It feels like a confession. The young detective flips it open and sees the past staring back at him in black and white. They call Calder. He's older now, lines around his eyes, a slower way of moving like every step is measured against all the ones he's already taken. He's in a different unit these days, different cases. But the name on the file slices right through the years. He doesn't even finish his coffee. He just grabs his coat and goes. At the river, the scene is quiet. The remains have been removed. Markers poke out of the dirt like teeth. Calder stands there for a long moment, hands buried in his pockets, watching the water move like nothing has happened, like nothing ever happened. Then he spots it in an evidence bag on the hood of a squad car. The scarf. He doesn't need a lab report. He doesn't need a witness. Emily's mother showed him that scarf 100 times, holding it with careful fingers like a piece of her daughter's pulse. He recognized the knit pattern then. He recognizes it now. The certainty hits him in the chest. It feels like being punched. For the first time, officially, the Navarro case shifts from missing person to homicide. A single tick on a form, a single circle filled in, but it changes everything. The bones go to the medical examiner. Forensic techs in 1995 have better tools than they did in 1985, but not by much. No instant answers, no magic machines. They measure, they compare, they map the damage, they build a story from fractures and angles. Female, 17 to 20. Time in the ground consistent with a decade. Signs of strangulation, hyoid bone cracked. The red scarf wasn't just clothing, it was a weapon. Dental records seal it. Emily Navarro, confirmed. 10 years after she stepped off that bus, the city finally knows where she went. But not why, not who, not how she ended up face down in the dirt, a short walk from the river that kept her secret. News spreads fast. Cold case teen confirmed dead after decade. Headlines thud onto porches. Radios spit out the story between traffic and weather. Television anchors lower their voices, lean forward, say her name like an apology. For the Navarro family, it's not closure. It's a funeral with no body left to mourn. They hold a service anyway. A small church, a framed photo at the front, the red scarf, what's left of it, sealed in evidence never to be touched again. Calder sits in the back pew, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the floor. He doesn't speak to the cameras outside, doesn't smile for the reporters who call him the detective who never forgot. He knows the truth. He did forget, in moments. He had to. There were other cases, other families, other ghosts. But the guilt doesn't care about logistics. It only asks one question: why didn't you find her sooner? Back at the station, the Navarro case is suddenly hot again. Files spread across desks. Old reports are photocopied, highlighted, torn apart. The new generation of detectives treats it like a fresh crime, except the witnesses are older, the memories are softer, and the evidence has spent a decade aging in cardboard. A young detective named Lisa Marquez gets pulled onto the task force. She grew up in the same city that birthed this case. She remembers seeing Emily's photo on a milk carton when she was a kid. To her, this isn't just another file. It's a headline from her childhood that never had an ending. Now she's holding it in her hands, ink smudged, margins filled with Calder's tight, angry notes. They go back to square one, not with hope, with discipline. Bus routes, shift schedules, witness lists. They track down the bus driver again, now near retirement, hair thinner. Memory not much better. He still remembers the scarf, the way she got off 3 stops early. He still can't say why. He still can't give a face to whoever or whatever was waiting at that intersection. But he adds one small detail he never thought mattered. There was a car, he says, idling near the corner, dark, maybe a Buick, maybe something like it. He remembers the faint glow of a cigarette in the driver's hand. Dark sedan, cigarette, cross hanging from the mirror. Pieces from different mouths, different times, sliding together like jagged teeth. Marquez listens, writing it all down, eyes flicking toward Calder. He doesn't say anything, but she can feel the tension in him, like a live wire. He's hearing the echo of his own notes from 10 years earlier. They've come full circle and still don't have a license plate. They search records for anyone in the area who owned a car matching that description in 1985. Hundreds of hits. Thousands. Too many. They narrow by known offenders. Assault, abduction, violence against women. The list shrinks, but it doesn't vanish. They start at the top and work down. Interviews, door knocks, names from the past pulled into harsh fluorescent light. Some suspects are dead. Some are locked up for other crimes. Some are living quiet, normal lives or pretending to. Every one of them denies knowing Emily, denies being near that bus stop, denies that alley, denies that river. One name keeps resurfacing. A part-time mechanic, lived near the intersection back then, owned a dark sedan, arrest record light but unsettling, harassment, one assault charge that never stuck. He moved out of the neighborhood the year after Emily disappeared. Now he's in a different state, different life, different name on the mailbox. They bring him in for questioning when he comes back to Chicago for a funeral. An old aunt, wrong city for nostalgia. The interview room is small, the air stale. He sits with his arms folded, eyes slow and smooth, the way people look when they've practiced being harmless. Marquez asks the questions. Calder watches from the corner. The tape recorder whirs softly, capturing every breath. He says he doesn't remember a girl named Emily. Says lots of girls took the bus. Says he worked late that winter, long shifts, no time for anything else. When they bring up the car, he laughs. Half the city drove dark sedans back then. When they mention the river, he shrugs. He liked to fish. That's not a crime. He asks if he's under arrest. He asks if he can go. They have nothing to hold him on. No DNA, no eyewitness who can put him and Emily in the same frame. No fingerprints linking him to the scarf, the bones, the alley. He walks out of the station, shoulders loose, steps like a man confident the past can't touch him. But something he says doesn't sit right. A phrase, a slip. He mentions the weather that night. Cold as hell, little snow on the ground. In a way that sounds too specific. They never told him the date. They just said the winter of '85. Did he guess? Did he remember? Did he put himself there without realizing it? Marquez and Calder listen to the tape again and again. That one sentence becomes a fracture line in the investigation. Is it the crack that will let the truth in? Or just another coincidence in a case built out of them? They send the old evidence for new testing. Technology has moved forward. DNA analysis is sharper now, hungrier. They pull samples from the scarf, the denim, the bone. They test trace fibers, skin cells clinging to the fabric after 10 years underground. The lab hums with machines that wouldn't have existed when Emily vanished. There's hope in the quiet, clinical whir of them. Weeks pass. The Navarro family waits in a familiar purgatory. The city doesn't buzz this time. There's no media circus swirling around the lab. Cold cases don't trend. They haunt. Finally, a result. Not a full profile. The samples are too degraded for that. But enough to build a partial, enough to run against databases, enough to say there was another person on that scarf, another body close enough, long enough to leave a microscopic echo. They run the profile, they hope for a match, they get nothing. No hit, no name, no clean path from the grave to the suspect list, just a shadow printed in genetic code floating in a system that has no one to claim it. Still, that partial DNA becomes a new anchor, a new headline inside the file. Unknown male contributor. He's real, he's there, he touched her, he pulled that scarf, or helped, or moved her, or buried her. Somewhere, he's walking under the same sky. Marquez pushes for more. She revisits the other missing girls from the early '80s, the ones whose cases faded into silence. She asks for their evidence boxes too. Bones, clothing, fibers. If this is a pattern, if this is one hunter working the same ground, maybe his shadow is in their files as well. Maybe he's been everywhere, leaving the same quiet signature. Some boxes are gone. Lost in moves, misfiled, water damaged. Evidence rooms are not sacred places. They are overstuffed, understaffed, half-organized warehouses of humanity's worst days. But a few remain, enough to test, enough to try. As they wait, Calder drives back to the river one more time. No tape now, no uniforms, just the soft rush of water and the hum of traffic from a nearby bridge. He stands near the spot where they dug her up and tries to imagine the night she went into the ground. The hands that did it, the breath in the air, the darkness pressing close. He thinks about how the report once said runaway, how that word sat in her file like an accusation. He feels a flare of anger, at himself, at the system, at the indifference of a city that breathes in victims and exhales statistics. Behind him, a train rattles by, graffiti flashing in the dark, life moving on. The lab calls again. Another partial profile from one of the older cases, another unknown male. They overlay the markers, compare, align. Some of them match. Not all, enough. Not proof beyond reasonable doubt, not a name, but a pattern, a whisper in the data, the same ghost brushing two different graves. Two cold cases, same shadow, same signature in the smallest pieces of evidence the killer never meant to leave behind. They bring the mechanic back in. This time, they don't talk about one girl, they talk about two, three. A cluster of disappearances orbiting his old address. They push harder. They poke at his timeline, his work history, his relationships. The mask slips, just a little. Irritation flashes, then something harder, something colder. He leans forward, smiles without warmth, and says, "You people had 10 years. If you were going to pin this on me, you would have done it already." It's almost a confession, but not in any way that counts. The city doesn't know his name, not yet. The papers still call him a person of interest. The Navarro family knows there's a man out there. The police keep circling. They don't know if he's the one. They don't know if they'll ever be sure. The case tightens and frays at the same time. Strong suspicions, weak evidence, strong emotions, weak leverage. It becomes the kind of file that keeps prosecutors awake and makes them shake their heads. We can't win this in court. Not now, not like this. Years keep stacking. The phrase Chicago 1985 cold case creeps into true crime books, late-night radio, message boards where amateur sleuths with too much time and too little context pick apart every detail. They redraw the bus route, they circle the alley, they post grainy maps of the river and argue about the angle of the grave. They share theories, they create monsters. They rarely touch the truth. For the people who were there, it's simpler. A girl stepped off a bus and never came home. The city found her 10 years too late. The man who did it might have sat next to them in a bar once, might have fixed their car, might have nodded politely in the grocery aisle. He's not a headline, he's a shadow. And somewhere buried deep in the file, under layers of reports and recordings and maps, a story is trying to surface, a small detail overlooked, a date that doesn't line up, a voice on a tape that doesn't belong. The case isn't solved, but something in it has started to move. The file gathers another thin layer of dust, but it never really sleeps. It sits on a shelf in the homicide office like a loaded question. Detectives transfer in, transfer out. Some glance at the label, some flip it open, some close it fast. The photo on top never changes. Emily, 17, eyes steady, looking straight through the years. By the late 90s, the city has changed. New buildings, new gangs, new headlines. But the river still runs in the same channel, and the alley where Emily stepped into the dark still swallows light the same way. On certain nights, it feels like time never moved. Only faces did. Technology moves, though. Computers creep into every corner of the department. Evidence once logged on index cards is now fed into terminals by tired clerks under harsh fluorescent lights. Names go into databases, prints go into databases, DNA goes into databases. 3 letters start to mean hope in cold cases. CODIS. A national system humming to life, hungry for matches. Marquez is the one who keeps pushing. She's not supposed to spend this much time on the Navarro file. There are fresher bodies, hot warrants, active suspects, but late in her shift, when the phone's quiet and the bullpen thins out, she pulls the box closer and reads. Reports, handwritten notes, maps with faded lines. She hears Calder's voice in the margins, sees the gaps he tried to close. She goes to her lieutenant with a simple request. Submit every scrap of DNA they've got from the Navarro case into the new system, even the degraded samples, even the partials that gave them nothing before. The lieutenant sighs, rubs his temples, says there's a backlog, says everyone wants their ghost tested. She doesn't move, doesn't blink. Finally, he nods. Fine, tag it priority, but don't get your hopes up. Hopes are already up, she just doesn't say it out loud. The evidence techs open the boxes again. The air inside smells like paper and old tape. They pull out the scarf, the denim, the bone slivers sealed in plastic. They handle them like relics. They shave off microscopic pieces, extract what's left of the story trapped in the cells. Machines hum, lights blink, codes scroll across screens. Somewhere in that electronic murmur, Emily's last struggle becomes data. Then the waiting. Again. Outside the lab, life doesn't stop. A new mayor takes office. The Bulls win, then fall. The city has parades, protests, blackouts, heat waves. Kids grow up never knowing there was once a 17-year-old girl who stepped off a bus and vanished into an alley that is now just another cut-through between a liquor store and a chain restaurant. Inside the Navarro house, time moves differently. Her parents grow smaller in their chairs. Birthdays pass unmarked, photos yellow. The television keeps playing the news, but they barely hear it. They still pick up unknown numbers on the first ring. Old habits don't die, they just get quieter. Calder is near the tail end of his career now. Retirement whispers from the edges. Golf, Florida, grandkids. He hears it and pretends he doesn't. He still checks in with Marquez. Anything? He asks, even when he knows the answer. She shakes her head. Nothing yet. The yet keeps the case on a life support machine. Then a blip. It's nothing dramatic. No flashing lights, no sirens, just a lab tech staring at a terminal as a line of text appears on the screen. DNA hit. Partial match. Unknown male contributor from Navarro Scarf shows shared markers with a profile in the system. Not a full match, not a direct ID, a familial link, a relative. He prints the report, walks down the hall, and hands it to Marquez like it's a bomb. The name on the form is not familiar. A younger man, arrested recently for a bar fight turned ugly, minor charge, cheek swab taken, DNA logged. The profile doesn't say killer, it says drunk who threw a bottle. But some of his markers line up with the unknown male from 1985. Marquez feels her pulse trip. Familial DNA is tricky. It's not a fingerprint, it's a hint. A suggestion that somewhere in his bloodline, there's someone whose cells brushed against Emily's last breath. A brother, a father, an uncle, a cousin, the past, hiding in the marrow of a new generation. She pulls his file, sees the address, nowhere near the river, nowhere near the alley, but his date of birth pins him as a child in 1985. Too young to be the man behind the wheel, the hand on the scarf. Still, families carry more than eye color and jawlines. She calls him in. He arrives sullen, wearing the same denim jacket he was arrested in, smelling faintly of stale beer and fear. He thinks this is about his fight, about the broken bottle, the stitches on another man's forehead. He slouches in the chair, yawns, looks bored. Marquez slides the Navarro photo across the table. Do you know her? His eyes flick down. For a second, something tightens in his jaw, then he shakes his head. No. She asks about his family. He has an older brother, he says, lives out of state now. Had a rough patch back in the day. Drank, fought, lost jobs, owned a car back then, dark sedan, used to hang around the west side a lot. Mother said he was always trouble. What kind of trouble, she asks. He shrugs. The kind that makes your mom pray. When he gives the brother's name, it hits like a dull, distant bell. They've heard it before. It was on that suspect list years ago. A part-time mechanic. Arrest that never stuck. Moved away after the disappearance. They brought him in. They let him go. He's the same man, older now, living under the same name, just further from the city that once tried to catch him. Marquez feels the case shift beneath her feet. The old circle tightens. This isn't just a person of interest floating in the fog anymore. There's a line now. Scarf to unknown DNA to younger brother to older brother to dark sedan to alley to river to grave. It's not enough, but it's not nothing. They dig deeper into the mechanic's past. Employment records, rental history, old neighbors. One file, long ignored, mentions a complaint from a tenant in his building in the mid-'80s, a woman who called police about creepy behavior, a man watching her teenage daughter at the bus stop, pacing in front of the building, sitting in his car too long with the engine running. The report is thin, no charges filed. But the address is 3 blocks from where Emily stepped off the bus. They track down the daughter. She's in her 40s now, married, 2 kids. She doesn't like talking about the past, but when they show her a photo of the mechanic as he looked back then, something in her face closes. That's him, she says quietly. He used to stare, always smoking, always watching. My mom told me never to walk alone after dark. Did he ever talk to you? Marquez asks. Once, she says, and the word lands heavy. He offered me a ride, said it was too cold to be waiting outside. I said no, went back upstairs. Next year he moved. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. They collect more threads. Old coworkers remember he sometimes came in with scratches on his hands. A girlfriend from the era remembers he liked the river, liked driving at night, liked the way the city looked when everyone else was asleep. None of it is a smoking gun. All of it smells like smoke. The mechanics of justice grind slow. The prosecutor's office sits down with the detectives, spreads the evidence out on a conference table like a twisted feast, DNA partials, witness statements decades old. A suspect who has aged out of recklessness into a quiet, careful life. They talk about burdens of proof, reasonable doubt, the risk of taking a 30-year-old case in front of a jury raised on CSI and expecting miracles. We need more, the assistant state's attorney says. We need him in that alley with her, not just on the same side of town. More. More from a past that has already given all it wants to give. Calder is retired by the time Marquez calls him with the update. He sits at his kitchen table, the phone cord curling around his fingers, coffee gone cold again. She lays it out. The DNA link to the brother, the old neighbor, the complaint, the pattern. So it's him, he says quietly. It sure looks like him, she answers. Then why isn't he in cuffs? She doesn't answer right away. Silence stretches between them, thin and fragile. Because looking like him isn't enough, she finally says. Not yet. He laughs, but there's no humor in it. Tell that to her parents. The Navarro parents are older still. Time hasn't been kind. Their hands tremble. Their steps are small, but their eyes, when they look at Marquez across the table, are laser sharp. She tells them about the suspect, about the car, about the alley, about the brother whose DNA woke up the system. She doesn't give them the man's name at first. She says a person. She says someone we strongly believe. She's careful. She's professional. They don't want careful. They want a name. When she finally says it, the father's eyes close. He nods once, slow. We heard that name, he says. We heard it back then. They said they talked to him, then they said he was nothing. The mother grips the edge of the table so hard her knuckles pale. Is he going to prison? She asks. Marquez can't lie. I don't know yet. The room fills with a different kind of silence. Not the absence of sound. The presence of something heavy and wordless. Outside their window, kids ride bikes over cracked sidewalks. A bus hisses to a stop. Somewhere, a radio plays a song that didn't exist when Emily walked these streets. Back at the station, Marquez pulls the mechanic's photo from the file and pins it to the board. For years, the Cork has held maps and timelines. Now it has a face. It's not the face of a monster. It's ordinary. That's what makes it worse. She stares at it until the edges blur. She thinks of all the nights he might have driven past that bus stop, waiting for the right girl, the right moment, the right combination of cold and loneliness and routine. She thinks of Emily's choice to get off 3 stops early. Voluntary, coerced, a signal, a mistake. She knows one thing. He knows. He knows what happened in that alley. He knows how tight he pulled the scarf. He knows how far he drove. He knows where he parked when he dug. He knows what it felt like when the dirt fell back over her. He has carried that knowledge inside him for decades. Quiet, heavy, invisible, like a second skeleton. The cold case unit calls him in again, but this time he doesn't show. His lawyer appears instead. He says his client has nothing more to say. He says the police are harassing a law-abiding citizen about something that happened before some of these detectives were even out of high school. He says any further contact should go through him. The door closes. The chair stays empty. The photo on the board becomes even more infuriating. Outside the department, the story leaks. Local news picks it up. Chicago 1985 cold case linked to potential suspect through DNA. It's careful. It's cautious. It doesn't name him. It calls it a major development. Talk shows spend a day chewing on it. Callers argue about whether you can trust evidence this old, this thin. Then the city's attention slides away again to fresher tragedies. But in one corner of the internet, the case doesn't slide. Message boards light up. Amateur sleuths seize on the phrase major development and turn it into fuel. They scour public records. They comb old newspaper archives. They hunt for the mechanic's name, piecing it together from half-redacted documents and stray comments. They find him. They post his address, his past charges, his old employer, a grainy yearbook photo that might be him. They build timelines that are sometimes right, sometimes wildly wrong. They call him the alley stalker. They send his name spiraling across forums and feeds. He doesn't step into the spotlight. He retreats, changes routines, maybe changes phones, maybe changes locks. Neighbors notice he's more withdrawn, more suspicious. They weren't watching him before. They are now. Pressure builds, formal on one side, chaotic on the other. Inside the case file, the original goal remains the same. Not a podcast episode, not a headline, a charge that sticks, a conviction that holds, justice that lasts longer than a news cycle. To get there, they still need one more thing. One more shard of evidence, one more voice from the past, one more crack in his armor. Something is out there, a forgotten statement, a misfiled photo, a piece of him left where it shouldn't be. It's waiting, and the case, colder than the river that kept her, is still not done shifting. Sometimes the last clues don't come from labs or archives. They come from people who can't sleep. In a small apartment on the edge of the city, the mechanic's younger brother lies awake, staring at a ceiling that hasn't changed in years. The TV flickers in the corner, volume low, running some true crime show that blends one case into another. On the screen, a headline about a decades-old mystery solved through DNA. Different city, different victim. Same structure, same script, family crying, detective smiling, justice at last. He changes the channel. But the phrase sticks, decades-old mystery. He knows the cops came to see him. He knows why they asked about 1985, about bus stops and dark sedans and an older brother who always seemed to be one bad decision away from disaster. He knows they took his DNA because of a bar fight and somehow it dragged the past into the present. He also knows something else, something he's never said out loud. The next day, he sits in his car outside the police station for 20 minutes, engine off, keys twisting in his hand. The building doesn't look welcoming. It looks like a place where stories go in and don't come out the same. But finally he gets out, walks through the doors, and tells the receptionist he needs to speak to someone about that old Navarro case. They bring him to Marquez. She recognizes him immediately, the same guarded eyes from the last interview, but now there's something uneasy underneath. He sits, fidgeting with the brim of his cap, glancing at the recorder she sets on the table. "I'm not here to get my brother in trouble," he says first, like a shield. "We're not here to get anyone in trouble," she replies calmly. "We're here to find out what happened to a 17-year-old girl." He nods, swallows hard. For a few seconds, the only sound is the faint hum of the HVAC. Then he starts talking. He remembers a night in February 1985. He would have been 12. Their mother was working late, their father long gone, just the two brothers in a cramped apartment that smelled like oil and cigarettes. The older one, the mechanic, jittery, pacing, smoking more than usual. He kept looking out the window, the younger brother says, kept checking the street like he was expecting someone. Then he grabbed his keys and said he had to take care of something. I asked if I could come. He told me to go to bed. He didn't, he watched. From the bedroom window, he saw the dark sedan pull out of the alley behind their building. He remembers the exhaust hanging in the cold air, the taillights disappearing down the street. He remembers thinking, he'll be back in an hour. But he didn't come back in an hour, or 2, or 3. He came back around dawn, the younger brother says now, voice low. I heard the door. He tried to be quiet, but the floorboards squeak. I got up. He was in the bathroom, scrubbing his hands, scrubbing his nails, like there was something he couldn't get off. He didn't see blood. He didn't see a body. He didn't see a girl. He saw only his brother's face in the mirror. Pale, eyes wide, jaw clenched so tight a vein stood out in his neck. When he came out, I asked if he was okay, he goes on. He said he hit a dog, said he pulled over to see if it was still alive, said there was a lot of mess. The word sticks in his throat. At the time, I believed him. I was a kid. But later, when I heard about that girl going missing, when I heard about the river. He trails off, his fingers curl into fists. You think he was involved, Marquez says quietly. He doesn't answer right away. Then he nods, once, sharp. I don't know what I think. I just know that's the only night I ever saw him like that, and he used to drive near that bus line. He used to talk about how stupid people were walking around alone at night. It's not a confession. It's not a direct witness account of a crime. But it's new. It's another crack. A look inside the suspect's apartment on the same night Emily disappeared at the same pre-dawn hour when her parents were calling hospitals and friends, voices shaking. Marquez thanks him, offers water, asks if he's willing to go on record, to testify if it comes to that. He hesitates. Family loyalty wars with something older, something heavier. Finally, he nods again. I don't want to live the rest of my life wondering if I helped him get away with something, he says. If he did this, he's been free longer than she's been alive. The words hang in the room like a verdict no court has reached yet. When he leaves, she sits alone for a moment, staring at the closed door. Then she picks up the tape, labels it, files it with a care that feels almost ceremonial. Another piece of the puzzle, another reason for the board to feel heavier. She takes it to the prosecutor's office. Now the conference room feels different, less like a graveyard for old files, more like a war room. The ASA listens to the tape, eyes narrowed, pen tapping. The story draws a clear line. Unusual behavior, unexplained late-night drive, obsessive washing, timing that matches the disappearance. Combined with the DNA family link, the prior complaint from the neighbor, the pattern of disappearances in the same area, and his long-standing presence on the suspect list, it starts to sound less like coincidence and more like a narrative. But it's still circumstantial, the ASA says, almost apologetic. A defense attorney will hammer this. He hit a dog, he was upset, he washed his hands. There's no direct witness placing him with Emily, no confession, no physical evidence tying him specifically to her body. What about the DNA patterns connecting multiple cases, Marquez pushes? What about the river, the car, the neighbor's statements? They're strong indicators, the ASA says, but a jury doesn't convict on smoke. They convict on fire. We need something that burns. Fire. The word follows Marquez back to her desk. She stares at the mechanic's photo again, at Emily's, at the map of bus routes, the red circles, the grainy black and white shot of the alley. Somewhere in all this is heat. It just hasn't flared yet. She does something that's half procedure, half instinct. She orders a full re-examination of every photograph, every recording, every note from the original 1985 investigation. New eyes, new lenses. Technology has changed even for images. What once was a blurry background might now, under enhancement, show something the original investigators missed. An evidence tech grumbles but complies. He loads old negatives into a scanner, feeds tapes into cleaned-up decks, runs software to sharpen, lighten, stabilize. Hours of footage from the early days of the search flicker across his screen. News crews filming the alley, detectives walking the route, reporters blocking the view, shoving microphones into tired faces. In one clip, shot the day after Emily vanished, the camera pans across the intersection where she stepped off the bus. For a fraction of a second, a car rolls by in the background. Dark, boxy, mid-'80s sedan, ignored at the time, just background traffic. But the tech pauses, zooms, enhances. A miracle won't appear. Hollywood lies about that. But clarity inches forward. The resolution stays grainy, the plate unreadable. Still, he can make out a shape hanging from the rearview mirror, catching light as the car turns. A small cross. He freezes the frame, prints it, brings it to Marquez. It's not proof. It could be any car, any cross. Chicago is full of both. But combined with the neighbor's story, the bus driver's memory, the mechanic's own faith tattoos, it hums with possibility. They tack the image to the board. It stares back at them like a taunt. So close, yet still not enough. Meanwhile, the internet sleuths are busy writing their own narratives. Someone claims a source inside the department says an arrest is imminent. Someone else posts an entire timeline of the mechanic's movements based on half-truths and outright guesses. People argue over sidewalk cracks and streetlight placements like they're reading tea leaves. They're loud. The official investigation is quiet. It has to be. One night, after too many hours staring at the same stack of reports, Marquez drives out to the old mechanic's neighborhood. It's changed. New paint on buildings, different shops, some boarded up, some gentrified. The alley behind his former apartment still smells like oil and wet trash. She parks and walks the route he would have driven to get near the bus stop, imagines the snow from that night, the cold, the empty sidewalks. Emily stepping off the bus, scarf tight around her neck, breath hanging in the air. A car easing up to the curb, a window rolling down, a voice offering a ride, a door opening or not. A decision made in seconds that spins a lifetime of consequences. It's guesswork, but crime scenes are often reconstructed from guesses, stitched to facts. She ends up at the river. Same embankment, same wrong quiet. She pictures him again, hands on a shovel, digging fast, paranoid, watching for headlights on the bridge. She hears the river sliding by, indifferent. She whispers into the dark, not expecting an answer. Somebody saw you. Because somebody always does. It just might not be a person. Back at the station, a young analyst in a corner cubicle is working on something else that no one asked for, but he couldn't resist. He's running geographic profiling software on the cluster of disappearances from the early 80s, including Emily's. It's more advanced now than when Calder drew lines on paper. It digests locations, times, victim profiles, spits out probabilities. When the model finishes, a map glows on his screen. Red heat at certain points, cooler blues elsewhere. The most likely home base, according to the math. A small radius that includes the mechanic's old building, his workplace, and the intersection where Emily left the bus. He prints that too, adds it to the growing pile of not enough, but getting there. The case file has become a gravity well. People in the department are being pulled into its orbit. Some resent it, some are captivated by it. A few remember being kids when her face was on the news and feel like they owe that child version of themselves an ending. The mechanics of justice, though, don't care about emotion. They care about admissibility. The prosecutor finally concedes one step. We're not ready for charges, he says, but we might be ready for a grand jury. Secret, controlled. We lay out what we have, see if we can get an indictment, but we go in knowing this. If they say no, if they say the evidence is too thin, it's going to be even harder to take another run later. Risk, always risk. They decide to do it. Witnesses are called in quietly. The younger brother repeats his story under oath, voice steadier this time. The neighbor from the 80s, now with gray hair and slower steps, tells the panel about the man watching her daughter, the complaints, the nights she triple-locked the door. The analysts walk through the DNA partials, the familial link, the geographic profile, the enhanced photo of the car, the records of his dark sedan. They show the panel Emily's school photo, they show the grave by the river, they describe the red scarf as a weapon, they let silence do some of the work. The mechanic is notified he's under scrutiny. He doesn't testify. His lawyer speaks for him, challenging everything. Coincidence, he says. Flawed memory, junk science. You can't put my client in that alley. You can't say he touched that scarf. You can't say that partial DNA belongs to his family and not a million other men in this country. In the windowless room, 12 ordinary citizens listen. They shift in their seats. Some look at the photos longer than others. Some stifle yawns. Some blink back something else. After days of testimony, the prosecutor presents the question in blunt terms. Do we have enough to charge him? Not did he do it? The system doesn't ask for metaphysical certainty, just legal sufficiency. The panel disappears to deliberate. Time passes. No one in the task force sleeps well that night. Not Marquez, not Calder, sitting in his living room with the phone on the coffee table in front of him like a coiled snake. Not the Navarro parents, who don't even know a grand jury exists in this process, who just feel a familiar tremor in the air, like the city is holding its breath again. The call comes the next morning. The grand jury has made a decision. They will not indict. Insufficient evidence, as the report says. Too much time has passed. The words land like a body hitting water. There's no splash, just a heavy, sickening absence. Officially, nothing changes. The mechanic is still a person of interest. The case is still open. The file is still on the shelf. But in another, quieter way, everything changes. The path to trial just narrowed to a hairline crack. In the bullpen, detectives react in their own ways. Swearing, silence, bitter jokes. Marquez walks to the board, looks at the photos, the maps, the pinned notes, the enhanced car image, the printed DNA graphs. She stands there for a long time. Then she reaches up and does something that feels like ripping out a piece of herself. She doesn't take the suspect's photo down. She doesn't take Emily's down. She takes the grand jury form and pins it right in the middle. A reminder, not that the case is dead, that the system is afraid to declare it alive. The story of Chicago 1985 cold case doesn't pause. It just shifts again into a new phase, one where the official line says, "We tried," and the unofficial line whispers, "We're not done." Out in the city, the alley is still there. The river still runs. The mechanic still walks around as a free man, looking over his shoulder a little more often now, but free. And the community that watched a girl vanish, then watched her come back as bones, feels the old anger stir. Because if this is what justice looks like, it doesn't feel like justice at all. The decision not to indict doesn't make a sound when it leaves the courthouse, but the echo spreads anyway. It moves through the precinct and mutters in clenched jaws. It slips down side streets and into bar conversations. It lands hardest where everything started, in that small brick house on the west side, where the Navarro name is written on the mailbox in letters that have faded but not fallen off. They don't get a formal notification, no press conference, no solemn knock. They hear it the way ordinary people hear everything that happens to them, by phone. A detective they barely know now, not Calder, not even Marquez, calls with a practiced voice and a script built from other families' disappointments. I'm sorry, he says. The grand jury declined to indict at this time. The case remains open. We'll keep pursuing leads. The mother listens, eyes fixed on a spot on the kitchen wall that's been the same off-white for 30 years. Her hand tightens around the receiver. So he walks, she says. It's not a question. We don't have the evidence we need to. He walks, she repeats, then hangs up. The sound of plastic hitting plastic is small. The silence afterward is not. In another part of the city, the mechanic sits at his table, the morning paper spread in front of him. The story gets a few inches near the bottom of page 3. Grand jury declines to indict in 1985 cold case. No names, no photos, just the standard language about insufficient evidence and ongoing investigation. He reads it once, twice, slowly, lips pressed together. Then he folds the page over, hiding the headline, and stares at his reflection in the dark window for a long time. He doesn't smile. He doesn't need to. The lack of handcuffs is a victory on its own. Inside the department, the Navarro board stays up when every other case gets rotated, replaced, updated. Detectives walk past it every day. Some glance at it and feel a tug of guilt. Some avoid it, as if looking too long might pull them into its gravity. There's a rumor that a new chief wants to take it down because it hurts morale. No one touches it. There are some ghosts you don't erase from the walls. The file thickens in strange ways now, not with new evidence, but with printouts from the internet, blog posts, message board threads, amateur timelines. Someone drops a transcript from a small late-night radio show where a caller claims to be close to the truth about the Chicago 1985 cold case. The transcript is useless. The caller is drunk. The truth is more about aliens than about alleys. It goes into the file anyway. Everything does, in case the nonsense hides a scrap of sense. Years pass. Calendars change. The city skyline grows more glass and steel, less brick and soot. Surveillance cameras sprout on corners that once hid everything. True crime shifts from late-night reruns to primetime prestige. Documentaries, dramatizations, streaming queues full of unsolved mysteries, framed like entertainment. It was only a matter of time before someone picked up the Navarro case and turned it into content. The first big one is a podcast. A moody, music-laced, 12-part deep dive hosted by a man with a calm voice and a talent for turning tragedy into cliffhangers. He calls it 3 Stops Early, the Chicago Bus Girl. The title alone makes Marquez want to put her fist through a speaker. He files records requests for everything he can get. Old photos, redacted reports, audio from press conferences. He interviews neighbors, retired cops, former classmates of Emily who now live in other states and remember her with the soft edges of nostalgia. He calls Calder. He calls the Navarro parents. They decline at first, so does Calder. Silence feels safer. The show airs anyway. Episode by episode, it moves through the same timeline the detectives know too well. The late shift, the bus stop, the alley, the river, the red scarf, the dark sedan. The host speaks in that hushed, important tone, letting long pauses linger after words like cold case, mysterious, shocking. He amps up the drama. He hints at police missteps, at ignored tips, at a suspect hiding in plain sight. Some of it is fair, some of it is not. By episode 6, the city is talking again. Coworkers discuss it over lunch. Families listen in cars on the way to school. Social feeds churn with theories old and new. People who were kids in 1985 feel the ground shift, old fears resurfacing. People who weren't born yet latch onto the case like a brand new obsession. The host keeps one thing just within reach, but never quite says it. The mechanic's name. He alludes to him, describes him, calls him the man in the sedan. He walks right up to the legal line and balances on it like a circus act. The mechanic hears the show too. It's impossible not to. People send him links. Strangers drive slowly past his house. A news van parks at the end of his street one afternoon, hoping for a shot of his front door. He calls his lawyer, furious. They're turning me into a monster, he says. You gave them a shape to use, the lawyer replies. Lie low, don't talk, don't take the bait. He doesn't, but the pressure builds again, this time from thousands of unseen listeners instead of 12 jurors in a locked room. Eventually, the podcast host gets what he wants. Calder agrees to talk. Not in the studio, not on the record at first. In a diner near the station where the coffee is bad and the grill has been there longer than most of the staff. They sit in a cracked vinyl booth. A recorder sits between the salt and pepper. Calder stares at it like it's an old enemy. I'm not here to bash the department, he says, or to make a show out of this girl's death. I understand, the host answers, even though the show is already made. I just want your perspective. You were there. Calder was always there. In the alley, in the Navarro living room, at the river. At the filing cabinet where the runaway form sat like a lie. He talks carefully, he avoids names, he talks about shortcomings in resources, about how missing girls from certain neighborhoods never got the attention they deserved, about how runaway was a stamp that closed doors before they opened. He sounds tired, he sounds honest. What keeps you up at night about this case? The host asks, soft. Calder doesn't look at him. He looks past him at the window, at the way traffic moves like blood cells through veins. That bus stop, he says, 3 stops early. Someone or something made her get off there. If I knew why, I'd know who. The episode airs. It hits people like a headline screamed in a quiet room. The bus stop question. Forums explode. Theories multiply. Did she see someone she knew on the street? Did she get a call on the payphone? Did she notice she was being followed and try to change her route? Every possible scenario gets dissected, diagrammed, dramatized. Somewhere in the noise, a single email lands in Marquez's inbox. Subject line, something I never told anyone about that night. The sender is an older woman now living in a suburb an hour outside the city. She writes haltingly, apologizing for the lateness, for her fear for the way memory might have bent. She writes about being in that neighborhood in February 1985, visiting a cousin. She remembers walking near the intersection where the bus stopped, remembers hurrying because the cold hurt her lungs. I saw a girl in a red scarf, the email says, standing near the bus sign looking scared. There was a car idling by the curb, dark. I remember the driver leaning over, talking to her through the open passenger window. I didn't hear what he said. I just remember one thing very clearly. She shook her head, like she was saying no. Then I heard him say louder, "Come on, I'll get you home faster than that bus." His voice sounded irritated, like he thought she owed him something. The woman kept walking. It was late. It was cold. It wasn't her business. Didn't everyone tell you not to get involved? Then, months later, she saw the photo in the paper. She recognized the scarf. She recognized the fear. But by then, the headlines were chaotic, the story already a mess. She convinced herself it was someone else. She had kids, a job, a life that didn't have room for a police station and a statement. She buried it. Now, after hearing the podcast, after decades of avoiding that part of her own memory, she can't bury it anymore. I don't know if it was her, she ends. But I think about that girl all the time. I see her every time I drive past a bus stop at night. Marquez reads the email twice, 3 times. Her heart thumps a little faster. It doesn't break the case, but it sharpens a moment. She calls the woman in, takes a fresh statement. The face across the table is older, lined, but the eyes are clear. The details are still there. Red scarf, dark sedan, open window, driver leaning over, irritated tone, offer of a ride. The woman can't give a license plate, can't give a clear face in the driver's seat, but she can say one thing with certainty. He knew her, she says. Or he wanted her to think he did. He spoke to her like he expected her to say yes. Could you pick him out of a photo lineup? Marquez asks. The woman hesitates. After all this time, I don't know, maybe. I remember the shape of him, the way his shoulders looked, hunched over the wheel, the way his hair fell over his forehead. It's more like an impression than a photograph in my mind. They try anyway. They show her old photos, composite arrays, summer fillers. One is the mechanic in his 20s. She studies them, brow furrowed, fingers hovering over each image. This one, she says, finally tapping his very lightly. If I had to choose, but I can't be sure. I don't want to be the reason an innocent man goes to prison or a guilty one walks free. It's a maybe, a fragile one. It goes in the file with all the other maybes, a constellation of doubt pointing at the same man. The prosecutor's office listens. They nod. They say the same thing again. We're closer, but not enough. Not yet. Not yet. Always not yet. The podcast finishes its run with a final episode titled Unsolved. It leans into ambiguity, into the ache of no answers. The host wraps it in somber music, talks about systemic failures, about how some cases become symbols instead of solutions. He thanks the Navarro family for their strength, even though they never sat down in front of his microphone. He signs off with a promise that cold cases never truly die as long as someone remembers. Then he moves on to the next series. But the listeners don't. Some of them stay. They keep digging, keep posting, keep sending tips, both wild and plausible. One of those tips lands on a different desk. Not Marquez's, not Calder's. A digital crimes analyst new to the department intercepts an email from a tech company responding to a subpoena on a completely unrelated case. In a folder he wasn't meant to linger on, he sees background data for phone location pings near the riverfront, old records, company archives going back farther than anyone realized. An idea starts to form. If the mechanic had a pager back then, if he used certain services, if those companies kept anything, it's thin. It's almost science fiction. But more and more, the past is being silently backed up on servers no one thinks about until they need them. He brings the thought to Marquez. She rubs her eyes, tired, but she listens. It's a long shot, a very long shot, yet the Navarro cases live this long on less. They draft new requests, broader, smarter, targeted not at content, but metadata, logins, movements, patterns. It will take time. Everyone says that. It will take cooperation from corporations that don't like digging through old archives. It will take luck. In the meantime, the city keeps going. A new generation of kids waits at bus stops with earbuds in and phones glowing in their hands, oblivious to the ghost who shared their spot 30, 40 years ago. Parents tell them not to talk to strangers, but also to be kind. The old rules still clash with the new world. The alley where the cold case began is now lined with a mural someone painted on the brick. Bright colors, flowers, faces, a vague call for peace in the neighborhood. No plaque mentions Emily. No sign tells you the ground remembers more than paint. But people remember anyway. Not everyone. Enough. At the Navarro house, the mailbox still bears their name. Their phone still rings with unknown numbers, though less now. They've grown accustomed to strangers wanting interviews, wanting quotes, wanting emotion on command. They say no to most of it. They say yes only when they feel the person asking isn't chasing ratings. Sometimes, late at night, the father stands at the window and watches the street. Every headlight passing feels like the one that should have brought her home. Every bus that hisses to a stop feels like a punch. The mother keeps the same photo on the mantle, but next to it she's added a small card, hand-lettered, the ink starting to fade. We are still waiting. The cold case is still unsolved, officially, on paper, in the language of courts and charges and convictions. Outside that narrow world, in the wider, messier one, people have already made up their minds. Some see the mechanic's face and think killer. Some see the police and think failure. Some see the story and think warning. Some see a girl who stepped off a bus into the dark and think, that could have been me. The file stays open, the board stays up, the river keeps its own counsel, and somewhere, in a server room humming in the dark, old data sleeps, time-stamped and forgotten, waiting for someone to ask the right question in the right way, waiting to be dragged out of the digital river the same way her bones were dragged out of the real one. The case isn't solved, but it refuses stubbornly, angrily, to die. The server room is nowhere near the river, nowhere near the alley. It's in a bland building in a different part of the city, humming with cold air and hard drives. No ghosts, just data, racks and racks of it, stacked like anonymous tombstones. On a gray Tuesday morning, an email lands in the digital crimes analyst's inbox. A reply from a telecom company legal team. Dry language. Apologies for delay. Attached files. Legacy logs preserved for internal audit and compliance. He clicks without expecting much. Old pager gateways, call forwarding records, static from the previous century. Then he sees the date, February 8th, 1985. Most of it is noise. Lines of code, timestamps, routing info for calls that meant nothing in the grand scale of things. A birthday, a delivery, someone running late. But buried in the export, a pattern pops. Repeated contact with a pager number registered then to a small repair shop off Damon, the mechanic's workplace. He scrolls, 11:16 p.m. Page sent from a payphone near the grocery store where Emily worked. 11:23. Gateway logs the tone hitting the mechanic's shop pager. 11:24. Callback initiated from a different payphone 3 blocks away near the intersection where she stepped off the bus. The analyst's fingers freeze on the mouse. A ghost call, a signal bouncing between metal and wire while a girl walks through the cold. He prints the log, time, location, number. Then he cross-checks. The payphone near the grocery store, the payphone near the bus stop, the shop pager. 3 points forming a crooked triangle over the city map. For years, investigators argued about why she got off 3 stops early. Now there's a new possibility, not a shadow, a signal. He takes it to Marquez. She reads in silence, lips pressed tight. The room feels suddenly small, the fluorescent light too harsh. A payphone across from Emily's workplace sending a page to her suspected killer's job. Minutes later, a callback from a phone near the intersection where she vanished. Who sent the page? She asks. The analyst shakes his head. That's the catch. These records don't capture the caller's identity, just the originating number and the account hit. But we can place that first payphone. It's practically across the street from the grocery. And the second? Same story, corner by the bus stop. So someone called him, she says slowly. Someone reached out from her world into his, right before she disappeared. She thinks of a manager calling a mechanic for a ride, a friend asking for help, or a predator using someone's trust as a weapon. Something connects these circuits. They pull the old employment records again, the grocery owner, the coworkers, anyone who might have known someone at the repair shop. Old names roll past. One stands out now with fresh weight, a part-time stock boy who used to pick up extra shifts cleaning at the shop. A bridge between two worlds. He's not in Chicago anymore. They find him 3 states away, working in a hardware store, the past trailing behind him like a faint exhaust. Marquez flies out. He's older, heavier, but when she lays Emily's photo on the break room table, time peels back in his eyes. He sits. The plastic chair squeaks. I remember her, he says. Everyone remembers her. She was the one who didn't belong there, like she was just passing through. She asks if he knew the mechanic. He nods, says he did odd jobs at the shop, mopping, unloading shipments, says the man was quiet but intense, smoked constantly, watched people more than he talked. Did you ever call him from the store? She asks. His eyes dart to the side. Sometimes, he admits. Shop would need a part fast. Manager would tell me to call. He had a pager. It was easier than chasing him down. February 8th, winter of '85, late shift, red scarf, bus stop. He frowns, sifts through memories petrified by time. That night, he tries. I remember the cold. Everyone remembers that cold, but no, I don't remember calling him that night. I might have. I don't know. He came in sometimes to see the manager. They talked about cars, deliveries. I didn't pay attention. She shows him the printout, time, payphone number, pager hit. Could the manager have sent it, she asks? Could a customer have? Did he give his pager number out a lot? Yeah, the stock boy says slowly. He was proud of that pager, like it made him important. He'd give the number out to customers, people at the bar, anybody who might need a mechanic. Anybody, including someone who might have needed a ride fast. Someone standing outside a grocery after 11 p.m. with the buses running slow and the temperature dropping. He stops, a small crease forming between his brows. What? Marquez presses. It's just, there was this one night, he says. Not sure if it was that night, but she was closing with the manager. He offered her a ride. She said her mom would worry if she was late. He joked about her being too good for the neighborhood. I remember him saying, if you're ever stuck, call my guy. He's always driving. Then he laughed and said he should put the pager on the bulletin board. A pager number drifting through conversation like background noise. A practical thing, a helpful thing, a door. Could she have used it, Marquez asks. Could she have called him herself? He looks at the log again. If she did, I never knew. Outside, the sky is dull, heavy with weather. She walks to her rental car with the printout burning in her pocket. Someone at that store reached out to the mechanic minutes before Emily vanished. Someone at that bus stop triggered a callback. The logs don't say who, but the timing sings. Back in Chicago, the telecom expert adds more color. Calls from payphones were logged by location. He pulls old maps, layer after layer. The first payphone, on the corner just down from the grocery. The second, 30 feet from the bus stop. Both long gone now, replaced by ad boards and clean sidewalks. The ghosts remain in the numbers. We can't prove it was her fingers on the buttons, he says. But we can say whoever called his pager at 11:16 was standing close enough to see the store's neon in the glass. And whoever triggered that callback was on her route home. It's more than they had, still less than they want. They bring the mechanic in again. His lawyer objects, but the pressure of public curiosity, the hum from the podcast, the whispers from his own neighbors make refusal look bad, so he comes. Different suit, same eyes. In the interview room, the air feels heavier. Marquez lays the printouts on the table. The pager logs, the payphone locations, the dates, the times. You remember this number? She asks, tapping the old pager ID. He glances, looks away fast. His jaw flexes. That was decades ago. I don't remember every gadget I owned. You gave it out, she says, to customers, to friends, to people you wanted to impress. So what if I did? He snaps. I was trying to make a living. You got paged from a phone near the grocery where a 17-year-old girl worked, she continues, not raising her voice. Minutes later, your device got pinged from a payphone near the bus stop where that same girl stepped off the bus and disappeared. You want to talk about that coincidence? He stares at the printout, then at her. His gaze is flat, but there's something under it. Calculation, fear, rage. I got calls from all over the city, he says. People broke down, people drunk, people needing a jump. That's what happens when you're a mechanic and everyone has your number. Do you remember picking her up? She asks, sliding Emily's photo forward. Do you remember stopping by that bus stop and rolling your window down? Do you remember offering a ride, saying you'd get her home faster than the bus? He doesn't flinch, but his fingers twitch. A tiny tremor. You people are desperate, he says. That's what I remember. Desperate to make your story line up. It's not a confession, but under the table his foot taps, fast, erratic. Who paged you from the store? She asks. The manager? The stock boy? The girl who never made it home? He leans forward now, eyes narrowing. You have my brother stirring this up. You have some old neighbor with bad memory. You have a podcast clown turning my life into episodes. And now you have phone logs from when half this department wasn't even born. You think any of that adds up to proof? It adds up to you always being there, she says quietly. At the edges of her life. At the edge of that bus stop. At the edge of that river. He laughs once, harsh. If I did what you think I did, don't you think you would have nailed me by now? You had your shot. The grand jury passed. You lost. Let it go. He stands when his lawyer tells him to. Leaves when they can't legally hold him. Again. But this time when he steps outside the station, there are cameras. Somebody tipped a reporter. Somebody sent the same podcast listeners the time and place. The mechanic walks into a wall of microphones and flashing bulbs. Sir, are you involved in the Chicago 1985 cold case? Did you know Emily Navarro? Did you ever drive a dark sedan near... He keeps his head down. His lawyer shoves a path through. No comment, no comment, no comment. But images hit the evening news anyway. Unnamed person of interest in cold case faces questions. His face fills screens across the city. Ordinary, tired, hard. The Navarro parents watch from their couch. They know that jawline, that profile. They saw it once in the hallway of the station decades ago when he was just one of the names they were told to stop fixating on. The mother puts her hand on the TV, fingers trembling. You, she whispers. It was you. In the days that follow, the mechanic's life compresses. He gets threatening mail. He gets sympathetic letters, too, from people who think he's being railroaded. He gets no peace. He changes routes, changes habits. The case he thought might be fading is once again wrapped around his neck like a noose that hasn't been pulled tight. Inside the department, the new logs trigger another meeting with the prosecutor. New voices at the table now. A younger ASA, sharper on tech, more willing to gamble. These pager records place him at the center of an interaction we never knew existed, the younger attorney says. We still don't have a direct eyewitness, but we can map out the chain. Page from her world, callback from her bus stop, his pattern of behavior, the deposit of her body near his known haunts. Combined with familial DNA and historic complaints, we have a stronger circumstantial case than most cold homicides ever get. The older ASA frowns. He's thinking about appeal, reversal, humiliation. Juries today, he says, want video. They want fingerprints glowing on screens. They want DNA that spells out a name. We walk this in front of 12 people. We need them angry enough to bridge the gap with common sense. Then we make them angry, the younger one replies. We show them how she was treated, how this city treated her, how he's been walking around free for almost 40 years while her parents spend every day staring at a chair she never sat in again. We show them the pattern. We show them the map. We show them every coincidence lined up like dominoes and ask them how many you need before you stop saying coincidence and start saying choice. It's a risk, a bigger one now than before. If they lose at trial, double jeopardy locks the door forever. No new evidence, no second run. If they never charge, though, the case will rot on the shelf until everyone who remembers the winter of '85 is gone. The city keeps moving, buses keep stopping, kids keep checking their phones instead of looking at the street. The river keeps swallowing reflections of skyscrapers. In a quiet moment in her office, Marquez stands in front of the board again. She takes in the lines, the photos, the logs, the scribbled notes, the grand jury form pinned like a scar. She thinks of the younger brother who chose to talk, the neighbor who remembered to stare, the woman who walked past the bus stop and heard a man say, "I'll get you home faster than that bus," the analyst counting numbers in a server room, Calder sitting in his kitchen, phone near his hand. Some cases demand endings, some fight them. She reaches up and moves one piece on the board. Emily's photo, slightly higher, center. Everything else radiates from her. The file is still open, the case is still cold, the title hasn't been earned yet. Chicago 1985 cold case solved. Not yet, not today. But for the first time, the distance between the headline and reality feels less like a fantasy and more like a road. And someone finally has found the first clear footprint on it. The decision doesn't come from a burst of genius. It comes from exhaustion. Late night, fluorescent lights, stale coffee gone bitter in paper cups. Conference room, same one where the grand jury said no. Different energy, fewer doubts, more anger. The younger ASA lays it out one last time. Pager logs, payphone locations, familial DNA, pattern of disappearances, neighbor complaints, brother's testimony, bus driver, witness at the bus stop, the river, the grave, the scarf. He doesn't dress it up. He doesn't call it airtight. He calls it what it is. This is a murder case with no forensics we didn't fight for, he says. No witness who hasn't aged. No evidence that hasn't sat in a box. But we have a story that holds. We have a man who sits at the center of too many coincidences. And we have a family who's been living in a permanent crime scene since 1985. We can let him die free. Or we can try. The older ASA looks at the photos again. Emily on one side, the mechanic on the other. He's seen so many cases, so many victims, so many suspects, that they all blur sometimes. This one doesn't. This one never has. Once we charge, he says quietly, that's it. No do-overs. I know, the younger one answers. And if we lose with everything on the table. Not with an insufficient evidence stamp in a file cabinet. Silence. The hum of the building. Elevator chime down the hall. Somewhere else in the city, people are arguing about sports scores, dinner plans, weather reports. Here, everything is balanced on a discolored conference table. Finally, the older ASA exhales. Okay, he says, file the charges. Homicide. First degree. 1 count. The paperwork hits the system just after midnight. The case number ticks into existence like a new heartbeat. By dawn, a warrant is signed. They don't broadcast it? Not yet. No press alert, no cameras staged. A small team rolls out quiet. Unmarked cars, vests under plain clothes. Marquez in the lead, badge on her belt, her expression iron flat. They find him at home. It's a modest place, neither shabby nor thriving. The kind of house that doesn't draw attention. Curtains half closed. Mail piled inside the door. He's in the kitchen, cup of coffee halfway to his lips when the knock comes. He knows that knock. Firm, rhythmic, official. He opens the door and sees Marquez. 2 uniforms, 1 sergeant. Behind them, the early morning street looks strangely empty, like the city decided to step back and watch. Good morning, she says. Her voice is calm, professional. We have a warrant for your arrest. For a second, his face is blank, then his jaw tightens. The coffee cup trembles just enough for a ripple to shiver across the surface. On what charge, he asks. First-degree murder, she answers. In the death of Emily Navarro. He laughs. It's not real. It's a bark, sharp and ugly. You're kidding. After all this time? No, she says, turn around, please. They cuff him. His lawyer will later complain about that. He'll say it was unnecessary, humiliating, but the metal snaps shut anyway. It echoes down the quiet block. A neighbor peeks through curtains. Another cracks a door. Someone across the street lifts a phone, records. Within hours, that grainy video will be online, shared, slowed, dissected. Person of interest, now defendant. The booking photo is surreal in its banality. Standard backdrop, standard placard, same eyes, older skin. The mugshot runs on local news by noon. Arrest in Chicago, 1985, cold case. The ticker screams. Cold case. Solved. Not yet. Charged. Yes. The Navarro parents see it on television. No warning. No call. Just his face replacing the weather map. The mother's hand flies to her mouth. The father leans forward, knuckles digging into his knees. They got him, she whispers, as if speaking louder might break the spell. He doesn't answer, but the way his shoulders shudder says everything. At the station, Marquez reads the rights out loud again. She's done this 1,000 times with other suspects. It never felt like this. This one feels like the end of a marathon run in mud. His lawyer is there before the ink dries. He shuts down questions as expected. My client will be making no statements, the attorney says. You've harassed him for years. Now you're trying to save face with a circus. We'll see you in court. Court, that's the new battlefield. The days between arrest and arraignment are chaos. Reporters swarm the courthouse steps. Headlines stack on screens. Cold case breakthrough. Decades-old mystery heading to trial. Chicago, 1985 homicide suspect in custody. Talk shows bring in retired cops, legal analysts, even the podcast host, who now gets booked as an expert. He doesn't say, I did this. He says, I think the attention helped. He says, cases like this show what happens when communities refuse to forget. He doesn't mention that he's already planning a special update episode. Online, the amateur sleuths declare victory. Some gloat, some celebrate, some become suspicious of the prosecution now, convinced they've arrested the wrong man. Conspiracies sprout, they always do. Inside a small courtroom, amid scuffed wood and humming fluorescent lights, the mechanic stands before a judge. Shackles around his ankles now, the charge is read. The words are official, flat, devastating. You are charged with the offense of first-degree murder in that on or about the 8th day of February, 1985. His lawyer enters a plea. Not guilty, Your Honor. Of course. The judge sets conditions. No bond, flight risk, community outrage. The man who once blended into the city is now too visible to trust. He's led away. Cameras catch his profile again. Headlines grab another bite. Back in the neighborhood where Emily lived, people talk on stoops, in barber shops, in corner stores. Some remember her clearly. Some remember only the feeling that something bad happened on their block and never got fixed. About time, an old man says at the laundromat. They let him breathe free air too long. Alleged, someone else says. You gotta say alleged. That's what they say on TV. In the Navarro house, the air changes. Not lighter, different, like a storm moved from the horizon to the front yard. Marquez visits them, not as a formality, as an obligation. She sits at their kitchen table, the same table that's absorbed 30-plus years of coffee rings and tears. The mother's hands fold and unfold on the surface. The father's thumbs press into the grain. We arrested him, she says simply. Names the charge, names the court date. Names the risks without pretending they don't exist. This won't be easy. The defense will attack everything, the age of the evidence, the memories, the tech, us. The mother listens, eyes steady. Will you testify, she asks. Yes, Marquez says. Will that other detective? The father asks. He doesn't say Calder's name, but he doesn't have to. I've spoken to him, she says. He's willing. He remembers more than some of our files. The mother nods once. Then we'll be there, she says. Every day, every minute. The road to trial is long. Motions, hearings, arguments about what can be shown, what can be said, what can be kept out, the defense files to suppress the pager logs, calling them unreliable relics from a defunct system. They attack the familial DNA as junk science. They question the witness who saw the red scarf at the bus stop, the younger brother with the memory of the sink, the neighbor scared of being watched. They try to move the trial out of Cook County, arguing that media coverage poisoned the pool. They waive transcripts of the podcast, headlines, social media posts. The jury, the defense says, will come in with their minds already made up. The judge listens to both sides, denies the venue change, grants some motions, denies others. The pager logs stay. The DNA stays with limitations. The podcast? Off limits in court. No referencing episodes, no quoting the host. Justice is supposed to care about evidence, not narrative. Outside, the narrative doesn't stop. Cold case going to trial. Will decades-old evidence hold up? Justice delayed? Question marks everywhere. Calder gets a subpoena. He stands in his kitchen holding it, remembering the first time he knocked on the Navarro's door with a notepad in his hand, a lifetime ago. He calls Marquez. You really think we can do this, he asks. I think we have to, she answers. He laughs softly, and that's not a yes. It's the only answer we've ever had, she says. He shows up anyway. In prep sessions, they walk him through his old notes. The alley, The red smear, the early interviews with the bus driver, the neighbor, the mechanic. They play the oldest tapes through modern equipment, cleaning the hiss, tightening the words. Do you regret marking her as a possible runaway in the first report? The prosecutor asks. Yes, he says immediately. Will the defense hit you with that? Yes. Can you handle it? He thinks of Emily's photo in his wallet, the edges worn, the ink fading. He thinks of their file labeled Navarro Emily missing flipping to Navarro Emily homicide after they pulled her out of the ground. I can handle it, he says. In a different room, they prep the younger brother. He looks sicker than his age. Guilt can do that. He wrings his hands as he rehearses what he saw. His brother's late-night return, the frantic scrubbing, the hit-a-dog excuse that never sat right. You're going to be attacked, the prosecutor warns. They'll say you're making it up to protect yourself, to distance yourself, to get attention. I'm not, he says. I should have said something sooner. In court, you look at the jury, the prosecutor tells him. Not him, not his lawyer, them. Tell them why you're here now. I'm here because she never got to leave, he says quietly. We all moved on. She didn't. The witness from the bus stop sits with the victim advocate, practicing deep breaths, grounding techniques. She's afraid of misremembering on the stand, afraid of being wrong in public, afraid of being right. What if I mix it up, she asks. What if it wasn't that night? What if I just want it to be that night so it means something? You tell the truth, the advocate says, which includes your doubts. Juries can smell lies. They respect honesty. She nods, but fear still trembles at the edge of her voice. Meanwhile, in county lockup, the mechanic waits. The days are long and identical. Sounds of metal doors, muffled shouting, the clank of meal trays. He talks to his lawyer. He says they've got nothing. He says this is a witch hunt. He says he's the victim now. In the quiet moments, he stares at the ceiling and listens to the echo of words he once said at a bus stop. I'll get you home faster than that bus. He tells himself he's remembering wrong. He tells himself memory lies. He tells himself he never saw her, never talked to her, never drove past that intersection with the window down. Memory is slippery, guilt is not. The night before jury selection, the city hums with the story again. Local news does retrospectives, archive footage rolls, grainy shots of the alley, the original reward posters, the 1995 press conference at the river. New footage shows the courtroom, the heavy doors, the polished benches. At the Navarro house, they lay out clothes like they're preparing for a wedding and a funeral at the same time. The father chooses a shirt and tie he bought for Emily's graduation that never happened. The mother smooths a dress she hasn't worn since the funeral for bones and a scarf. They sit on the edge of their bed for a moment, hands linked, silent. If they let him go, she says, what do we do? He doesn't answer right away. Then softly, we keep breathing. Is that enough, she asks. It has to be, he says. Morning comes like any other. Alarm clocks, traffic, kids late for school, coffee lines. The city's heart beats the same way it has for decades. But outside the courthouse, there's a different pulse. Reporters, spectators, people who knew her, people who didn't but feel like they do now. The case that started at a bus stop and disappeared into an alley is about to be dragged under another kind of light. The caption on the bottom of the news broadcast reads the same way on every channel. Chicago 1985 cold case goes to trial. Not solved, not yet. But for the first time, the question of what happened to a 17-year-old girl on a freezing February night won't be confined to old files, late-night whispers, and dim memories. It will be read out loud. It will be challenged. It will be answered. If not by evidence, then by verdict. And somewhere underneath the wood and marble and microphones, the city's oldest fear thrums with a new, dangerous hope. Maybe after all these years, this cold case will finally get its ending.